Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Naruto. I have set my skills to the limit. Chapter 21. Only Tsunade can convince Jiraiya from the bottom of his heart, even if he is beaten severely for no reason, he will not have any thoughts of resistance. Kamiya, you must not tell Tsunade about this. Shenyi couldn't help laughing out loud, and finally saw Jiraiya's weak side. But in the end, Zilai is also for the village, and at the same time to help him get rid of the suspicion more quickly, although there are some inappropriate behaviors. Don't worry, brother Jiraiya, I will rot this matter in my heart. Zilai also nodded. This sentence was said in Shenyi's mouth, he didn't have any doubts. With a crooked moon hanging in the sky, Shenyi groped his way to the house, watching from a distance that the lights in the room were still on. Pushing open the door, Tsunade was leaning sleepily on the sofa, as if he would close his eyes and fall asleep at any moment. Stinky boy, you are finally back. I don't know why this guy Jiraiya is taking you around. It's getting late, Sister Tsunade, you'd better go to bed, it's been a tiring day. Kamito pushed Tsunade's tired body into her room, then returned to his own room and fell into a deep sleep. In his sleep, Shenyi used the system stealing skills to stand at the pinnacle of the ninja world and became the existence that everyone yearned for. Opening his eyes again, Shenyi found that it was already noon, and he missed the morning class without knowing it. If Kamiya's memory is correct, today is the third Hokage who personally came to the Ninja Academy to teach. It's all my fault, Jiraiya, for wasting my time for nothing. Shenyi sighed deeply, quickly packed his clothes and ran towards Ninja Academy. Looking hurriedly, Shenyi didn't notice a little girl standing at the gate of the college, and there was no doubt that the two of them bumped into each other. Ouch! The painful wailing sounded in Shenyi's ears, and Shenyi quickly walked over to help the girl up. After seeing her face clearly, Shenyi was a little dazed, with piercing eyes under her fair face, and her well-proportioned mouth highlighted her beauty even more. Shenyi was a little surprised. In his impression, she had never appeared in the ninja world. You are so beautiful, Shenyi blurted out, even he himself didn't think why he said that. Hello, my name is Misaka Nakata. It's my first day at Ninja Academy. Please take care of me. Not only did Mei Shang not lose his temper because of Shenyi's ruthless impact, but he bowed slightly politely, showing his full humility. In an instant, Shenyi's heart was like a blowing breeze. Let me take you into the classroom. Shenyi unconsciously took Mei Shang's hand, the latter blushed slightly but did not reject Shenyi. The two walked into the classroom one after the other, instantly attracting the attention of many people. Among them Yuxing and Miken's eyes fell firmly on Shenyi. Minato pushed Lu Ju, his eyes very ambiguous. Shenyi has met a new girl in such a short period of time, and he really deserves his fair face. That guy seems to be our new classmate Misaka Nakata. I heard that his background is similar to that of Shenyi. Minato rubbed his chin. This seemingly beautiful girl had such a tragic experience. Holding Mei Shang's hand, Shenyi walked all the way to Namikaze Minato's side, and Minato quickly vacated 2 seats for him. Yu Xingjiao snorted, stood up in her seat and walked towards Shenyi. Minato had an expression of watching the excitement, ready to watch a big show. However, there was no expression on Shenyi's face, and he didn't take these things seriously at all. Shenyi, who is this beautiful sister? It's our new classmate. The two of you just took this opportunity to get to know each other. I haven't gotten to know Mei Shang well either. Students, be quiet, and the third Hokage will teach you today's lesson. There was a sudden silence in the classroom. Although these children were usually lawless and oblivious, they became obedient in an instant after hearing the words, 3 Hokages. The third Hokage, wearing a hat on his head, walked towards the front of the classroom step by step, scanning everyone with his eyes lightly. Longing figures have already appeared on some guys' faces. The position of Hokage is the goal that many people strive for, and the same is true for Minato. Only Shenyi had a calm expression on his face, wanting to find out what the purpose of this old man's sudden appearance was. Sensing the fragrance from Mei Shang's body, Shenyi seemed to understand a little bit. You are the future of the village. I'm already old and I can't continue to protect you for a long time, so growing up quickly is what you have to do now. About the teaching of ninjutsu, there will be a special teacher to teach it. I am here today to tell you 2 things. Shenyi folded his arms around his chest and looked at Sandai with interest. If there were no accidents in these two incidents, there would be that guy pretending to be Jiraiya. Sure enough, the eyes of the third generation finally fell on Shenyi, and he waved his hand lightly to release a burst of chakra. Shenyi only felt a warm feeling behind him, and stood up unconsciously. Now, all eyes were on Shenyi, and Sandai slowly opened his mouth. Before, you all misunderstood Shenyi, saying that he was a voyeur in the women's bathhouse that day. I have thoroughly checked the situation at that time, and now I can confirm that it has nothing to do with Shenyi. Shenya stared at Hiruzuru Sarutobi with wide eyes. He didn't expect Sandai to defend himself. In a trance, a trace of doubt appeared in Makoto's mind. The third Hokage-sama had already said this, so it can be proved that it was indeed not Kamiya that day. However, in order for Maken to completely dispel her doubts about Shenyi, she needs absolute evidence in front of her. At the same time, Yu Xing was even more puzzled, not understanding why Hokage-sama helped Shenyi lie, when she could be sure that it was Shenyi who was peeping that day. I have already said that it has nothing to do with me, now you should believe it. There is another important thing. A dangerous guy has appeared in the village recently. If you accidentally meet him, you must choose to run away immediately. After all, Sandai turned around and was about to leave the classroom. Everyone's eyes shifted from Shenyi to Sandai, and Shenyi took advantage of the situation and sat down again. Minato reacted first, and quickly leaned into Shenya's ear to ask. Isn't it really you that day? Then the hatred of other boys in the class before that should not be. That's natural, but my lord has a lot of people who don't want to argue with these guys. With the disappearance of the three generations, the noisy voice in the classroom resumed. Some little guys couldn't help but come to Shenyi's side to express their apologies, claiming that they shouldn't be hostile because of that incident. Shenyi waved his hands carelessly, then turned to look at Mei Shang. Aren't you a ninja from Muya village? Can you tell me your story? Through the eyes of the third generation just now, Shenyi can be sure that he must have some kind of connection with the girl in front of him, and he can't even tell it casually. I am indeed not a ninja from Konoha village, but from an extremely small country. Because of the war, my family has been destroyed, and I am the only one left. Mei Shang, do you have a place to live now? Why don't you go back to Hyuga's house with me? Yu Xing changed her attitude just now, and began to invite Mei Shang warmly, but it seemed that there was nothing wrong with it. Even Shen Yi had a thought of inviting her to Tsunade's house, but in the end he had to ask Tsunade for his opinion. Thank you for your kindness, but I already have a place to live, and the 3 generations of adults have made proper arrangements for me. Shen Yi nodded. Her guess was not wrong at all. Mei Shang had indeed passed the test of 3 generations, maybe the two had known each other before that. The afternoon passed very quickly, and Shen Yi ushered in the good news that school was over in a few moments of stupefaction. Several people met to go to the hamburger restaurant in the village to have dinner together, so the mighty team wanted to walk outside the classroom side by side. But there was a fat guy blocking the door, and one person occupied the positions of 3 people. You guys stopped here, how did the others pass here? The fat guy turned his head, and Shenye immediately confirmed his identity as the little guy of the Chudao family. I also want to pass, but I ate too much this afternoon, so it will take some time. Shen Yi patted his forehead, wondering what was going on with this family. Every family member had an obese body and was extremely sensitive to food. In just one afternoon, you can cause your body to grow a few laps by eating. Let me help you, just in time to show off the ninjutsu I just learned. Minato took out a shuriken with an imprint from his knife pocket and threw it outside the door, and lightly pressed Aikido Ding's back with one hand. Taking a long breath, Minato began to operate the chakra in his body. Since practicing the technique of Flying Thunder God, this is the first time to truly perform it, and it is inevitable that there is tension in my heart. The art of Flying Thunder God. The surging chakra erupted on Minato's body, which has exceeded the reserves he can hold at his age. With a whoosh, Minato and Aikido Dingza disappeared from sight together, and when they reappeared, Minato was already standing beside the shuriken. However, Chudao Dingzo was stuck in the middle of the door, and 2 deep marks were squeezed out from the middle of his fat body. I'm sorry Chudao, I didn't expect this to happen. Shen Yi shook his head helplessly. At this age, Namikaze Minato can say that he can use the Flying Thunder God art to his limit, not to mention the weight far surpassing his Akamichi. Strange power. Without warning, Shenyi punched Chu Dao Ding Zuo heavily, and the huge force fell on Ding Zuo along with the fist. With a bang, Ding Zuo flew out in the middle of the door and fell heavily on the ground. The two girls, Yuexing and Meishang, closed their eyes tightly at the same time, not wanting to see the tragic things that happened next. But the voice from their ears was enough to form a picture in the minds of the two of them, and the expressions on their faces became a little hideous. But Chu Dao Ding Zuo seemed to have nothing happened at this time, got up and patted the dust off his body, and walked towards Shenyi with a smile. Brother Shenye, you helped me a lot today, I treat you, everyone eat freely. Shenyi's eyes lit up, and he was about to eat something. Chu Dao Ding Zuo came uninvited, of course he would not refuse this guy who knows how to eat. Without the slightest politeness, Shenye put his arm around Akido Ding's shoulder and walked outside. Minato and the others looked at each other and saw the helplessness in each other's eyes. Several people walked into the shop surrounded by each other, and the boss quickly appeared to greet him in person. During the period of running the store, this is the first time I have seen so many people dining here together. And he knew Chu Dao Dingzhou, who was the leader, whether it was this little guy or other members of the family, they were all big customers here. Simple food can't satisfy their appetite at all. Every time the ninjas of the Chu Dao family leave, the boss will hide behind and count the money quietly. Boss, it's an old rule to have a portion of every food here, and put it in the account of the Chu Dao family. The boss nodded and turned to the back kitchen to prepare food for everyone. Several people found a spacious place to sit down, and Shenyi looked outside along the window. System, what skills did you just steal from Chu Dao Ding Zuo? Ding, congratulations to the host for successfully stealing the skills of Chu Dao Ding Zuo, part of the multiplication technique. Skill cooling time, 3 hours. Shenyi was secretly satisfied. Although the power of this ninjutsu was not strong, it could be used as Shenyi's offensive ninjutsu at this time. Part of the doubling technique combined with stealing strange power from Tsunade can produce extraordinary effects. Shenyi, what are you secretly laughing about here? Yuexing patted Shenyi on the shoulder, pulling him back from his thoughts. Facing everyone's suspicious eyes, Shenyi instantly put on an embarrassed expression, and scratched his head lightly. I feel very happy to be good friends with you, so I couldn't help laughing. Shenyi suddenly thanked the teachers in the original world. If it wasn't for them, he wouldn't be talking nonsense so calmly. In the previous life, whenever she made a mistake and was questioned by the teacher, Shenyi would think of various reasons to evade the teacher. After a while, the boss pushed the cart and walked towards Shenyi slowly. There's so much food, Chu Dao, can you eat all of this by yourself? There may be some exaggeration, but these delicacies can be completely wiped out with force. Everyone couldn't help but gasp. It was the first time they saw such a ruthless character. Ding Zuo could eat other people's food for a week at a time. I'm gonna start now. Chu Dao Ding Zuo put his hands together and looked devoutly at the food in front of him, and then turned on the wind and cloud mode. In just a few breaths, the delicacies on the table are decreasing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Seeing this, Shenyi didn't hesitate, and directly grabbed the chicken leg closest to him and put it in his mouth, fearing that he would not be able to eat it if he was too late. The same is true for Luju and Minato. Only two girls, Yuexing and Meishang, slowly picked up some and put them in their mouths to chew carefully. Several children, it is really fate to meet here. A ninja wearing another village on his forehead appeared in everyone's sight. Shenyi raised his head and looked over. Some memories emerged in his mind. He is a ninja from Union Village, and the reason why he is in Shenya's memory is because in the original book, it was a few of them who took Uzumaki Kushina away. The sudden appearance of these guys here definitely has an impure purpose. We don't know each other. Where did the fate come from? Our boss wants to take Miss Meishang for a walk, so it's better not to stop you. Namikaze Minato frowned, stood up and stood between Meishang and the ninja of Union Village. Do you still know that this is the chassis of Muya Village? How dare you speak so arrogantly? What are the children chattering about here? It bothers me. Yun Yingkyun stretched out his big hand involuntarily to push Namikaze Minato aside, and grabbed Meishang with the other hand. Shenyi snorted coldly, and his body instantly moved in front of the ninja of Union Village, condensing his own chakra on the fist. Part of the multiplication technique increases monster power. With a few bangs in a row, Shen Yi's arm became the thickness of a tree trunk, and at the same time, there was a huge force in it, which was pressed against the belly of the ninja of Union Village. Boom! That guy was directly bombarded out of the house by force, and rolled on the ground a few times before stopping. The huge movement here immediately attracted the ninjas of Konoha Village patrolling around, and 3 or 5 people surrounded the guy, and at the same time, a ninja of Konoha Village appeared beside Shen Yi. You hit that guy, otherwise, you have already seen it and are still asking me here. The ninja looked Kamiya up and down. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he would never have believed that such a small body could produce such a huge power. At the same time, Chu Dao Ding Zuo, who had chicken legs hanging on his lips, was also shocked. He was not mistaken about the part of the doubling technique just now, it was the unique ninjutsu of their family. Before they had time to ask Shen Yi, everyone was led by patrolling ninjas to Hokage's office. The 3 generations who had just separated were sitting in front of the table, carefully considering these guys in front of them, and couldn't believe that they caused such a big commotion. 3 generations, shouldn't it be time to explain Mei Shang's situation to us in detail? That guy will take Mei Shang away when he comes up. Shenya didn't care about the respect for the 3rd generation of Hokage, and looked at Sarutobi Hiruzen with his hands on the table, not weaker than Hokage in terms of momentum. Hee, Mei Shang is a little guy from Union Village, but if he continues to be there, he will suffer some inhuman experiences, so he will be brought back to the village for protection. Shenya thought about it carefully, and what Sarutobi Hiruzen said had a deep meaning. On the one hand, he showed that he was protecting Mei Shang, and on the other hand, he revealed that she has research value, not just for Union Village. As for the final choice of Konoha Village, it depends on Mei Shang's future development. Shen Yi turned her head to look at Mei Shang, but no matter what, she couldn't see the hidden beast or threat under her face. I hope that the village will really protect her, not a guinea pig in a laboratory. Facing Shen Yi's questioning, Sandai didn't show any abnormality on his face, but he was anxious to break the water gate on the side, and wanted to go up to stop Yi-zan several times. In any case, Sarutobi Hiruzen is also the 3rd generation of Hokage today, and such disrespect for Hokage is not allowed in the entire village. I'm more curious about how the ninjutsu you used today is achieved. Is it a combination of natural strange power and the secret technique of the Chudao family? Shen Yi said inwardly that he was not good, his unique ninjutsu method was still being targeted, maybe before he could protect Mei Shang, he became a guinea pig in the laboratory. Turning his eyes, Shen Yi quickly jumped back 2 steps and landed beside Chu Dao Dingzhou. Strange power is the method of chakra operation taught to me by Sister Tsunade. As for part of the technique of doubling, of course Ding Zuo taught me. While speaking, Shen Yi blinked at Ding Zuo. Although the latter was usually a little demented, he instantly understood what Shen Yi meant. That's right, I taught Shen Yi the formula of ninjutsu when I was in Ninja Academy, but I didn't expect him to be able to comprehend it in such a short time. The 3rd Hokage smiled slightly, but did not expose the lies of these 2 people. Today's incident is still thanks to you children, so let's talk about what kind of reward you want. Being able to contribute to the village is what we should do. If we have nothing else to do, we will leave first. Minato hurriedly dragged Shenya and the others out of the room, and left the area of Hokage's office without stopping. Sandai Hokage got up and walked to the window, looked through the window at the little guys running towards the ground, and locked his eyes tightly on Shen Yi. Until everyone's backs disappeared from Sandai's sight, he sat back on the chair again. The lack of stop along the way made Chu Dao Dingzhou out of breath. Even if he stopped Minato, he gasped heavily while holding on to the big tree beside him. Why don't you have a reward? We missed a good opportunity to practice. There will be many such opportunities in the future. There is something wrong with the atmosphere in the office today. I feel it too, everyone should be more careful recently. Shen Yi left a word of advice, turned around and walked towards home. Yu Xing looked at the crowd and caught up with Shen Yi to go home together. Shikajiu and Minato, who looked at each other in dismay, shrugged their shoulders, and discussed sending Mei Shang home and then went home separately, but they were rejected by Mei Shang. You 2 don't need to worry about me. Zuo Ding needs you 2 more now. I can do it alone. The group parted at this point. Shenye opened the door and lay down on his bed, slowly closing his eyes. Thinking about the various performances of Sarutobi Hiruzen in the office today in his mind, his intuition told him that there was a conspiracy waiting for him. Only now did Shenye realize that the world was not as simple as he imagined. In the early morning, before Shenye opened his eyes, there was a burst of shouting outside. Shenye, the sun is already drying your butt, you haven't woken up yet. Yes, Shenye, we are all waiting for you alone, hurry up. Shenye rubbed his eyes. It was really bad to have such a dream interrupted for no reason, but at this time, there were all his good friends outside, so it was not easy to have a seizure. After tidying up briefly, Shenye put on her clothes and went outside. What's the matter with you guys running over so early? Ninja Academy is on vacation today, so I want to ask you to go to the training ground to practice together. Shenye cast a helpless glance at these two guys. I have really convinced you too. Since you must be tortured and killed here, then I will satisfy you too. Stretching his waist, Shenye walked towards the training field. Luju and Minato looked at each other, shrugged and followed behind. Before meeting Shenye, the two had already discussed that no matter what kind of beating they would face today, they would learn from Shenye. As a good friend, Minato did not hide the fact that Luju had learned the art of Flying Thunder God himself. Even the two of them had already made plans in their hearts, and took advantage of this opportunity to have a good night of killing gods and make a lot of progress. After a while, the three of them walked into the practice field. At this time, the place was overcrowded, and it was very difficult to find a place that was sufficient for practice. Shenye, this way. Chudao Dingzhou beckoned from a distance, and there was a huge open space around him, next to a forest. It turns out that the three of you planned it early in the morning. Hey, such an opportunity is very rare, of course we need to cherish it. Minato scratched his head in embarrassment, but he had already tasted the sweetness of ninjutsu, so he cherished it even more. The three of them walked slowly towards Chudao Dingzhou, and without warning, they swung their fists and hit Dingzhuo's fat belly. Before the latter had time to react, the power had already penetrated his body. Although Dingzhuo didn't move at all, he couldn't use any strength at all at this time, as if all the meridians in his body were blocked. What happened just now? There is no movement from such a huge force. Now I finally know why Shenye can easily defeat Genin. Both Luju and Minato had yearning expressions in their eyes, imagining in their hearts when they would be able to reach such a level. After a few breaths passed, Chudao Dingzhou suddenly found that his body had returned to the way of action. Surprised, he quickly moved his arms, and there was some disbelief in his eyes. Such a precise control of chakra, even a few guys from the Hyuga family can't do it, which is enough to see how terrifying Shenye's strength is. Since you trust me so much, let me teach you some ninjutsu. Shenye twisted his neck and walked to Luju's side in a few steps, and whispered a few words in his ear. Luju's face turned from shock to joy, and then he ignored the others and rushed into the forest to start a day's practice journey. Seeing the envy on the faces of Akamichi Dingza and Namikaze Minato, Kamiya smiled and came to Akamichi Dingza's side. I don't know much about your family's ninjutsu, so I can only let you control your own ninjutsu in a more subtle way. This is enough. The various ninjutsu of the Akamichi family all stem from the exquisite control of chakra. Shenye put his hand on Dingzhuo's body, and the subtle chakra flow transferred to Dingzhuo's body. Gradually, Dingzhuo noticed the changes in his body, and then sat on the side and continued to feel it alone. Shenye, is it my turn next? I can't wait. Forget it, it's better to practice the Flying Thunder God technique first. Minato was a little disappointed, but he obediently walked into the woods and started a day of practice. Compared with Ninja Academy, this place is more suitable for cultivation, can experience real battles more realistically, and adapt to the battlefield between life and death faster. Looking at these guys who have been moving around indiscriminately, Shenye felt bored for a while. Just at this time, Jiraiya's figure appeared in front of Shenye, and an interesting plan suddenly appeared in Shenye's mind as he rolled his eyes. Brother Jiraiya, let's play a game, shall we? Game? What game? It's just a simple chasing game. As long as you can catch me, I will give you all the money I have on my body, and let you spend time and money. Zilai, who wanted to reject Shenye, suddenly became interested after hearing the words, fancy and wine, and nodded in agreement. Shen Yi chuckled, turned around and ran out with all his strength, leaving Zilai standing there dumbfounded. He didn't expect this guy to enter the state instantly, and when he looked at Shen Yi again, his figure had disappeared in the training ground. This guy ran pretty fast. Shaking his muscles and bones twice, Zilai also slowly chased after him. Chasing the game is a long process, and Zilai was not in a hurry. Gradually, the scene in Jiraiya's sight has undergone earth-shaking changes. The surrounding houses gradually become scarce, replaced by forests one after another. Standing on the towering tree trunk, Shen Yi turned his head to look behind him, but he didn't find Jiraiya's figure. Why is this guy so slow? It seems that he didn't take this chase seriously. Shen Yi, why are you hesitating here? I'm already in front of you. Shen Yi frowned. Jiraiya's voice unexpectedly appeared behind her, but she obviously didn't see him catching up along the way. Even if you win this game, but I don't have a gold coin with me, so the bet has been completed. Shen Yi spread his hands indifferently, and had already thought of all the countermeasures the moment he saw Jiraiya. Even if he lost the game, it didn't matter. Ji Lai also grinned, and could only secretly scold Shen Yi for being shameless in his heart. Suddenly, there was a turmoil in the surroundings, and the two people looked at each other, and their bodies moved closer unconsciously. Such a noise sounds like a difficult opponent to provoke. Maybe it's the guy you've been looking for all along. Are you confident in killing that guy? Kids, don't hold back. No matter what he said, he used his feet to break away from the tree trunk, and his body flickered and completely hid in the jungle, leaving Shen Yi standing alone. Shen Yi quietly released the chakra perception, but still couldn't find that guy Jiraiya. It's really a good plan to keep me here as a bait. Although Shen Yi scoffed at such behavior, he still didn't move a little on the tree trunk. The surrounding voices became louder and louder, gradually approaching Yi Zan. Suddenly, two shurikens flew out from among the leaves, approaching Shen Yi's face. Shen Yi snorted coldly, twisted his body lightly, and the shuriken pierced through the air with the hurricane tearing across Shen Yi's face. It really hurts, how much power this guy used. Rubbing his slightly hot face, Shen Yi fixed his eyes on a direction in the woods, and he could hear that guy hiding behind. Come out, the guy who only sneaks around and makes small moves. Have you already discovered it? It's just a pity that the other guy ran away. Otherwise he would have killed two ninjas in Muya village one after another, and he could have returned to his life. A well-built guy slowly showed his figure, wearing the forehead guard of Union village on his forehead. Shen Yi frowned. Recently, guys from Union village appeared one after another. Could it be that there is going to be some war between these two villages? However, according to my understanding of the original work, this is the time when all ninja villages are ready to go, and no one wants to break this rule first. Another guy is here, and it would be a pity to let you run away. Jiraiya jumped behind that guy, and the two of them surrounded the ninjas of Union village one after the other. We just need to hold him back for a while. I've already spread the news. There will be reinforcements from the village soon. Shen Yi nodded. He also knew that Jiraiya's words were only for the ninjas of Union village. In this wild place, with Jiraiya's ability at this time, there is no way to send a message through the air. The ninja of Union village curled his lips coldly, as if he heard a big joke. He naturally understands Jiraiya's identity, and as one of the three ninjas, he has very strong strength. However, he also has self-confidence in himself. Even if he loses to him, he can escape safely. As for Shen Yi, he is not regarded by this guy at all. Out of the greatest respect for ninjas, I would like to know what your name is. Me. If you don't want to change your name, don't change your surname. Union village will bear Luya. Shen Yi looked at this guy with a strange expression. Bu Luya's name didn't impress him at all, and he was never mentioned in the original book. It's just an ordinary chunin, but his acting style is a little more arrogant than a shadow-level character. Water escape, the technique of water bullets. Bu Luya's body moved quickly to the side, and at the same time, his hands condensed the chakra in his body into his mouth little by little. Before this guy could complete the seal, Shen Yi took the lead in jumping to the side of Bu Luya, and punched him in the stomach with his fist. The moving body and the seal movement of his hands made Bu Luya lose the ability to dodge for a while, and he was firmly hit by Shen Yi's fist. I thought Shen Yi's fist was powerless, but I didn't expect a burst of strange power to appear. A mouthful of bitter water surged in Bu Lia's mouth, and his body retreated a long distance. Well done, Shen Yi, the next attack will directly kill him. Hee, I really underestimated you too, the children in Muya village can be so vigorous. Bu Luya wiped the blood oozing from the corner of his mouth, supported the tree trunk beside him and slowly stood up, with a hint of madness in his eyes. Shen Yi frowned. The punch just now had brought out all the strength he could condense in his body, but it didn't hurt him. Shen Yi, take a rest and leave the rest to me. Jiraiya also fell directly on the tree trunk, and at the same time, 2 shurikens appeared in his hands, and fell straight towards Bu Luya's head. Bu Luya slapped the ground with one hand, and stood up straight in an extremely irregular posture. You still want to sneak attack me with your ability? Go back to the village and practice for a few more years. Water escape, the art of water bullet. The unfinished ninjutsu just appeared in Bu Luya's mouth. A jet of water flew straight into the sky. Jiraiya was just above the position where the jet of water passed. This guy's reaction is so fast. Shocked, Jiraiya also quickly adjusted his body. The water column passed by his shoulders, and his clothes were pierced. Shen Yi, who had been watching the battle between the two, flashed past and appeared behind Jiraiya. Strange power. The palm landed on Jiraiya's body, pushing Jiraiya towards Bu Luya even faster. With a clang, the shurikens collided, and Bu Luya held a long knife for unknown reasons, and the flames scattered everywhere. Shen Yi shook his head helplessly. It seemed that he couldn't take down this guy for a while and needed some little help. Jiraiya, I'll help you. Shen Yi avoided Bu Luya's sight, and lightly placed his palm on his body, while silently muttering about stealing skills. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully stealing the skills of Bu Luya. Water escape, water flowing bullet. Skill cooling time, 3 hours. Finally you have a decent offensive ninjutsu, now let's see how you can defend yourself against your own ninjutsu. The moment she learned the water escape ninjutsu, Shen Yi had already mastered its highest form, and even the speed of the seal was greatly improved. The 2 hands were put together simply, and a water dragon appeared in the air behind Shen Yi, roaring wildly at Bu Luya. Bu Luya froze in place for a moment. He had practiced water escape ninjutsu for more than 10 years, but he was far inferior to the child in front of him. Even after living in the ninja world for so long, it was the first time he had seen ninjutsu of this level. How is it possible? You are just a child, how could you use such ninjutsu? There are still many things you haven't seen. From now on, think slowly in the cage of Muya village. Taking advantage of Bu Luya's shock, Shen Yi and Zilai rushed towards him almost at the same time, and threw 2 ropes to wrap him tightly. After realizing it, Bu Luya had no time to think, and wanted to exercise the chakra in his body, but found that it had no effect at all. The ropes tied to his body seemed to have some kind of magical ability, blocking the connection between the acupuncture points and preventing the formation of chakra. Shen Yi clapped his hands and nodded towards Zilai. The matter of handing over to the public is left to you alone. You must tell that old guy from the 3rd generation that all of this is due to you alone. Although Jiraiya was very puzzled about what it was for, he still nodded and agreed. Binding Bu Luya fiercely, Jiraiya bit his mouth lightly with one hand, and then slapped the ground with seals. The art of psychic. A smaller toad appeared on the ground, opened its mouth and swallowed Bu Luya. It's not too late. I'm going to hand over this guy to the 3rd generation now, and by the way, confirm whether the person pretending to be me is him. Shen Yi nodded, looked at the sky that it was getting late, and walked towards Jiraiya in the opposite direction. Even if you can't publicize this matter, you still have to let Tsunade know about it so that you can take some actions in the future. There was no stop along the way. Shen Yi shuttled across the roof and stopped directly at the door of his house. A sneaky figure wandered back and forth at the door. Shen Yi didn't pay attention at first. After all, there were many people coming and going on the street. Shen Yi, you are finally back. Hearing the familiar voice, it was Uchiha Makoto whom Kamiya least wanted to face. Do you have anything to do with me? There are some things I want to get some answers from you, so I have been waiting for you here for a long time. Shen Yi spread her hands. Although Maken looks very sweet, but because she has always suspected that she is a voyeur, she doesn't want to pay too much attention to it for the time being. If this misunderstanding is resolved, it will be a completely different state. Tell me if you have any questions, or if someone sees you, they will say that you are with a voyeur. Shen Yi deliberately teased Mikan, and thought that there would be a quarrel with Mikan, but she didn't expect her to be silent all of a sudden. I want to know whether the sudden increase in ninjutsu between Minato and Shikaku has anything to do with you. What if it is? What if it isn't? The Uchiha family will have a competition in the near future. I want to get a good ranking in this competition, so I want you to teach me to practice for a while. Shen Yi looked at the time. Only about 10 minutes had passed since he used the steel skill just now, and there was no way to use it again for a while. Come here and wait for me tomorrow morning. After leaving a word, Shen Yi opened the door and went straight back to his home, where Tsunade happened to be sorting out some documents in the room. Seeing the younger brother, he took and came back. Tsunade put down the things in his hands and turned around to greet him, and opened his hands to give Shen Yi a huge hug. However, Shen Yi pushed her away with a blank expression. Such an action undoubtedly confused Tsunade very much. On weekdays, Shen Yi wished he could hang on her body all the time, but this was the first time he was embraced and rejected by Shen Yi. What happened, Shen Yi? Today, brother Jiraiya and I met a ninja from Union Village in the village, but we were arrested by the two of us. Tsunade nodded, and patted Shen Yi's head with a look of relief. Based on his understanding of Jiraiya, if he meets that guy alone, there is a high possibility that he will let him go. It must be Shen Yi who was by his side and put forward some delicate opinions, so it was so easy to capture the enemy alive in his hands. It's a good thing for you, you can experience battles without officially becoming a ninja. However, I have no way to determine whether that guy is pretending to be Jiraiya. Are the enemies in Konoha village going to increase again? Tsunade was stunned for a moment, innocently implying that Shen Yi's behavior just now was entirely out of concern for the safety of the village, so he quickly bent down and hugged Shen Yi in his arms. Don't worry, no matter how many enemies in the village increase, I will protect you well. Shen Yi nodded, and leaned on Tsunade's shoulder relentlessly, feeling the warmth from both hands. In the early morning of the next day, Uchiha Makoto's voice came from outside the room, and Kamiya woke up instantly from his sleep. It was a dream, but it almost turned into a nightmare because of Makoto's voice. This little girl is really punctual. It's better not to keep girls waiting. Although Shen Yi is usually a ruffian, he is still full of gentlemanly demeanor in his bones. Our goal today is the training ground. As long as you can reach the training ground one step ahead of me, I will give you very powerful ninjutsu. Is this true? Mikan's surprise just showed, but she found that Shen Yi had already rushed out. For her own practice, for good results in future competitions, Mikan followed Shen Yi and rushed towards the practice field, not to be outdone. But as time went by, the distance between the two became farther and farther. This guy really holds a grudge, but he doesn't seem to understand the structure of the village very well. Mikan stopped suddenly, turned around and ran towards the side, shuttled back and forth between the crowded streets, and came to the middle of the training ground after a while. Standing at the door of the practice field, Shen Yi looked at Mikan with some surprise, not understanding how Mikan could catch up with her. You've lost the bet, so you know what to do. Shen Yi walked towards Mikan helplessly, raised his head and patted her shoulder lightly. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully stealing Uchiha Makoto's skills, Fire Escape, Fireball Jutsu. Skill cooldown time, 3 hours. For this result, Shen Yi was very satisfied. The technique of how Fireball has his prestige not only in the Uchiha family, but even in the entire ninja world. Today I will teach you the skills of the Fire Escape and the Fireball technique, but whether you can perform it successfully or not depends on your own efforts. Mikan nodded again and again. It is impossible to open Sharingan between games, and she is deeply aware of this. So the Fireball technique is now the only way to win. Shen Yi took Mikan to the side of the small river in the practice field, made seals with both hands, and showed her every move. Mikan stared intently at the movements of Shen Yi's hands, wishing she could take out a small notebook and write them down. This is all about the method of sealing the Fireball technique. I believe you have mastered these, but the final technique is the way chakra works. Makoto nodded again and again. She had tried to seal the seal, but there were some problems when mobilizing the chakra, which caused the ninjutsu to fail. As long as the problem of chakra can be solved, not only the fireball technique, but any ninjutsu can be easily mastered. This is the difference between a genius and a crane tail. Some ninjas can easily master ninjutsu only by learning simple answers. In the blink of an eye, it was time for the Uchiha clan competition, and Makoto made it to the final with her powerful fireball skills along the way. Kamiya, who had nothing to do, happened to pass by the Uchiha family, and looked in the direction of the door. It was the battle between Makoto and Uchiha Fugaku. At this moment, only the two of them are left to compete for the final winner. Fugaku obviously didn't want to fight against Makoto, and revealed his intention to give up the game during his actions, but was killed in the cradle by the eyes of the Uchiha patriarch. Mikan, I'm sorry, but you can't win this game. The Uchiha family has always been dominated by men, and today I want to let everyone know how powerful female ninjas are. That's right, a man should be so arrogant. Shenyi slapped his hands while walking towards the playing field, and finally stopped at the edge of the playing field and watched quietly. The corners of Fuyu's mouth twitched, and the urge to do something had already arisen in his heart, but this is a very important game and he can't do it indiscriminately. Go ahead, I just want to be a spectator quietly, and watch how the genius ninja Uchiha Fugaku was defeated by Makoto. Patriarch Uchiha frowned, but he never said anything. After all, he is a person of status, and it would be embarrassing to spread the word about rivalry with a child. The appearance of Kamiya did not disrupt Makoto's state, but Uchiha Fugaku was not so lucky. Every time I operate chakra, the figure of Shenye will appear in my mind, and his voice will ring in my ears. The appearance of this guy directly disturbed my state. Fuyu, don't be distracted during the battle, fire escape, the art of fireball. Mikan saw the flaws in Fuyu's movements, and quickly sealed with both hands to condense most of the chakra in her mouth. If this blow is successful, it will end the match directly. Similarly, if Fugaku dodges, Makoto's remaining chakra will not be enough to support her to continue fighting. Shenyi stood below with a faint smile on the corner of his mouth, and the result had already appeared in his mind. On weekdays, Makoto would definitely not be Fuyu's opponent. Anyway, the forehead guard on Fuyu's forehead showed that he was a ninja at this time. How could the little guy who has not yet graduated from the ninja academy be a ninja opponent? But what happened next shocked everyone except Shenyi. The small flame fell on Fuyu's body from an incredible angle, and even the patriarch didn't expect such a result. It seems that today's game has a result, and there is no point in continuing to watch. Shenyi shrugged, turned and walked outside. The reason why I came in to watch the game at this time was, on the one hand, to put some pressure on Fuyu mentally, and on the other hand, to see the expressions of these guys seeing the result. Shock and disbelief were written on everyone's faces. Sensing the glare from outside, Shenye subconsciously raised his hand to cover his face. Kamiya, it turns out that you are also here to observe the Uchiha family's game. It's over, Minato, you're late. Although I have been working hard to come over, I still missed it in the end. What is the result of the game? Of course Mikan won, you have to know that I went through my devil training before again. There was a relieved expression on Minato's face. The battle between Makoto and Fugaku reflected the difference between these little guys at Ninja Academy and Genin. What's more, Fuyu is a famous genius ninja not only in the Uchiha family, but also in the whole village. To celebrate the whole ending, let's go eat Ichiraku ramen. Forget about ramen, I have other things to do, today's task has not been completed yet. Mission. What mission? Minato moved to Shenya's side in a cheap way, thinking that the village had sent him some important task to complete. Of course, Shenyi would not tell him that it was to steal the ninja's skills, so he just made up a reason and turned around and left. Watching his gradually disappearing back, Minato shook his head helplessly. He knew that there must be some secrets about Shenyi, but as his good friend, he had to respect him and not ask casually. After parting from Minato, Shenye walked aimlessly on the streets of the village, looking for today's target. But looking at the crowds coming and going, Shenyi didn't find anyone worth stealing. Today's ninjas seem to disappear collectively in the village, and it can be seen that there are only some ordinary people and children. Even if they use stealing skills, it will not help. After thinking about it, Shenye decided on a goal in his mind. Even if the 3-generation-old man Sarutobi Hiruzen left the village, that guy would not leave, he would just stay in his position safely, spying on Hokage's throne. Following the direction of Hokage's office, Shenye walked directly into ANBU's location without stopping. Danzo was falling asleep at this time, looking like he had nothing to do with himself, and now he was the only one left in the entire ANBU. Danzo, you are so relaxed here alone. Opening his hazy eyes, Danzo carefully looked at the guy standing in front of him. Shenye, you have grown so tall. Obviously, I haven't seen it until today. Danzo was very surprised. In a few days, he reached the height of the next few years. What kind of monster is Shenye, and even his chakra is stronger than I don't know how many times. But it was only a brief shock, and Danzo quickly recovered. Why did you come here suddenly? You must know that the third generation of Hokage would not walk in casually. The expression on Danzo's face became more ferocious, and he began to think in his heart that if Shenye said something wrong, he would shoot at him. Even if he died here, no one would know that ANBU is the most mysterious organization in the whole village, and neither Tsunade nor the third generation has the right to interfere with the actions here. Sensing the murderous intent, Shenye slowly approached Danzo without revealing anything. I'm missing brother Danzo, so I'm here to see you. While talking, Shenye put his hand on his shoulder, and Danzo couldn't see anything strange at all. Can't find a suitable reason. Danzo is not easy to attack directly, and greets him with a smile on his face with Shenye. Speaking these words out of your brat's mouth, it always feels impure. If you have something to say, just say it. There is indeed one thing that needs your help, and it is only suitable in the whole village. Danzo glanced blankly at Yi, and knew that this guy was not that simple. Compared to the fact that you also heard that there is a guy pretending to be Jiraiya in the village, his existence deeply troubles my life. He harassed you. Fart. Only by catching him can I clear my innocence of not being a voyeur, so I want to ask my brother for help. I've been looking for this matter since the beginning, and I can't help you. Danzo spread his hands helplessly, with a troubled expression on his face. In fact, Danzo didn't want to help Shenye at all. If he couldn't find that guy, the misunderstanding would fall heavily on Shenye. It is a great thing for Danzo, and it has dealt with Shenye invisibly. Shenye sighed deeply, pretending to be very sorry, shaking his head while thinking about going out. Danzo leaned on the bed and watched Shenye leave quietly, until he disappeared before changing into that ferocious face. An immature idea appeared in Danzo's mind. There are countless members in the ANBU. If you just find a guy who you trust to frame a wave of Shenye, his reputation will be completely ruined in the village. At that time, Danzo didn't need to do anything to achieve his goals, and it was often more effective to destroy a person than to kill a person. Shenye walked back into the light again, and looked back in the direction of Danzo sarcastically. If you want to trouble me, I will save you some sympathy for the time being, and I will kill you directly next time. Clenching his fists, Shenye found that his strength seemed to have increased a bit, and even the blood circulation in his body was much stronger. Therefore, Shenye quickly asked what skills the system had stolen from Danzo. If the guess is correct, only the first generation of Wood Escape ninjutsu can possess such a powerful ninjutsu. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully stealing Danzo's skill, Wooden Dungeon, Tree Root Explosion Burial. Stealing skill cooldown. 3 hours. Shenye nodded secretly. This time, he not only successfully stole the attack ninjutsu, but also strengthened his body. Regarding Danzo, who had implanted the first generation cells in his body, Shenye was still very curious about the power of the ninjutsu he had stolen from him. Looking at the surrounding environment, Shenye jumped to the roof with a slight force on his feet, and ran towards the distant forest, impatient to try the power of ninjutsu. However, Shenye seems to have forgotten that the system ability he has can maximize the power of the ninjutsu he has stolen, and he doesn't need too much practice at all. With no one around, Shenye took a deep breath. Wooden, the roots of the tree explode. Feeling the flow of chakra, Shenye pushed his right arm forward fiercely, and the white arm instantly turned into a thick tree trunk. The countless plants in front of him were strangled clean by this trunk. The tree trunk slowly fell to the ground, and Shenye's white arm reappeared, even smoother and flawless than before. But at this time, Shenye can only use the chakra in his body once, and the remaining chakra cannot be used a second time in a short time. Relying on the chakra absorption of the fairy mode, it will take a few hours to release again. It seems that it is more cautious to use it. Little guy, you are actually able to use the first generation wooden escape ninjutsu. It seems that what Danzo-sama said is right, you will become a scourge sooner or later. A guy with a mask on his face appeared in front of Shenyi, leaning against a big tree with his arms folded on his chest. Shenyi took a closer look, and this guy turned out to be the guy who held Yu Xing hostage that day. Sure enough, Danzo's thoughts were not pure all along. As a ninja of Konoha village, do you still decide to work for Danzo? The order from Danzo-sama is only to observe you during this time, but now it seems that you can't keep your surname alive. Since I am a person who is about to die, can I know what your true face is? The one wearing the mask nodded, and slowly took off the mask on his face, revealing his true colors. Shenyi quickly thought about the information of the guy in front of him, trying to find his most direct weakness, and didn't want to waste any more time with this guy. Just now, he has used wooden escape, and the roots of the tree burst into burial. Although he has fully recovered during this period of time, he is still not as good as his peak state. Besides Danzo-sama, you are the second person who has seen my true face. You can die with peace of mind. Baidu, do you really think I don't know anything about ANBU? Shenyi chuckled, the expression on his face gradually relaxed, and now it was Baidun's turn to be nervous. In the whole village, he only had the code name belonging to ANBU, and the name Baiden had been sealed away from the moment he entered ANBU, and no one mentioned it. Who are you? How do you know such a secret? Go down and ask the dead ninjas, maybe they will tell you the answer. Shenyi took a step back with his right foot, concentrated his strength on his left fist, and slammed it in the direction of Baidu. The technique of multiplying part of the strange power. The huge fist stayed in the air, and it had already generated a strong wind and flew in the direction of Baiden. The blunt white hair was eaten and fell back one after another, and he couldn't help narrowing his eyes slightly. I've already suffered a loss once, will I be frightened by your same ninjutsu for the second time? Water escape, the art of flowing water wall. Baidun slammed the seals of his hands on the ground suddenly, forming a towering wall of water in front of him to block all the strong wind. Shenyi nodded, the last time he was able to scare him away with his sudden sneak attack, and he had been observing him for a long time. However, after a few breaths, a huge gap appeared on the water wall, and the secondary attack produced by the strange force had an obvious effect. Baidun, who had no time to react, was hit by the force immediately, and his body moved a long distance backwards in an instant. In such a short period of time, your strength has grown so fast that you will never be allowed to walk out of this forest alive today. You too, my secret has been discovered by you, so it's better to die obediently. Not intending to give Baidu a chance to breathe, Shenyi rushed forward with the shuriken in his hand, and the sound of clanging rang in the air. Shenyi, who has not yet graduated from Ninja Academy, can fight back and forth with Chunin Baidu with a shuriken in his hand. If other ninjas were here, they would definitely not believe that this was an attack that Shenyi could complete, and every time he attacked, Baidun had to go all out. The strength in Baidun's hand suddenly increased, and he used the shuriken to directly push Shenyi away fiercely. At the same time, he threw the shuriken on the ground, and his hands began to seal quickly. Shenyi could not see the movements of his hands clearly. The body moved backwards, and Shenyi had no way to make an unnecessary reaction for a while, but could only stop chakra from operating under his feet. Wind done, gale palm. Two whirlwinds visible to the eyes appeared in Baiden's palm, and after leaving the palm, they became extremely huge in an instant, rushing towards the direction of Shenyi. This guy can use two kinds of ninjutsu with different attributes, no wonder he became a member of ANBU. Shenyi frowned, it seemed that he had always underestimated this guy, and now it seemed that he was not fully sure that he could take this guy down. But things have already happened, let go of Baidu, and the matter of mastering Mu done by himself will explode in an instant. The old fellow of the third Hokage had never known what was going on in his mind. If he knew, the name of the lab mouse would be directly in his head. Chakra perception. Expand the range of perception to the extreme, and a clear image of tornadoes and their trajectories appears in the mind. The tornado that escaped from Baidu's palm still exists in the form of chakra, so Shenyi can use the situation to predict the next evasion direction. However, blindly dodging still has no way to keep Baidu, and he still has to find a way to take the initiative to attack. Art fire escape Ho fireball. The body continuously moved to the side for a certain distance, just passing by the tornado, and at the same time opened its mouth towards Baden. A huge amount of flames spewed out in the blink of an eye, and there was nothing else in the blunt eyes except the boundless flames. Even the ninjutsu of the Uchiha family can be released easily. Is it a freak, or is he deliberately hiding his strength? Baidun hurriedly backed away, trying to distance himself from the flames, but was soon completely submerged by the flames. The surrounding trees were burning with raging flames, but they stopped at a safe distance, just enough to surround Baden's position. Water escape, the technique of water waterfall. Suddenly, a huge waterfall fell from the sky, and the water and fire blended to form white mist. The mist shrouded Shen Yi, who lost his sight in front of him, as if he was in a fairyland. Partial doubling technique. With a bang, Shen Yi's arm became huge, and he swung back and forth in the air twice, and the strong wind driven by it gradually blew away the white mist. Baidun reappeared in front of Shen Yi, and there were still dots of burn marks on his clothes. It can be seen that at the beginning, Baidun didn't avoid the flames, and was hit hard on his body. Shen Yi, who had activated chakra perception, was able to clearly see through Baidu's state. At this time, half of the chakra in his body had disappeared. On the other hand, Shenye, with the continuous absorption of the fairy mode, has gradually replenished the chakra consumed by the wood escape ninjutsu. Even so, there are still many more chakras in Baidu than Shenye. After all, there is still a big difference between Chunin and children who have not graduated. Long-term consumption is not the answer. This guy has more methods than I imagined. It would be terrible if there was a ninjutsu that I couldn't handle. Shenyi rolled his eyes, thinking in his mind how to defeat the enemy with one move and end this endless battle. Baidun grinned, from being indifferent at the beginning to being careful, this guy in front of him deserves to be taken seriously. With a whooping sound, Baidun disappeared in place, and when he reappeared, he was already behind Shenyi. The light reflected by the shuriken shone on the tree trunk in front of Kamiya's line of sight, and Kamiya twisted his neck slightly to avoid Baidu's fatal attack. Afterwards, Shenyi raised his foot and kicked hard behind him, concentrating the strange force on his foot. But he didn't expect this kick to miss directly, and the force brought by it almost knocked Shenyi's body down to the ground. Turning around and looking, Baiden had jumped onto the tree trunk at this time, looking at Shenyi with playful eyes. "Little brother, I am a ninja who has experienced life and death. You are just a flower in a greenhouse. How could you be my opponent? I'm afraid my experience is something you will never experience in your life. It's better not to overwhelm me with your ignorant experience." Shenyi stayed close to Baidun, opened and closed his movements, not paying attention to those delicate attacks at all. Before absolute power, all fighting skills are useless. Baidun could only barely dodge. If he was hit by Shenyi's punch, he would lose half his life even if he survived. At this time, he finally understood why those guys in the village were so afraid of Tsunade. No one could bear such a strange force. Of course, Jiraiya is also excluded. He had been beaten by Tsunade when he was Shenya's age, and his body had already adapted to that force. Swinging his fists continuously, countless tree trunks were shattered by Shenyi's power, but none of them fell on Baidu's body. Does Chunin just keep dodging? Like a mouse? This sentence undoubtedly aroused Baidun's strong desire to fight, and his body immediately stayed in place, waiting for Shenyi's fist to land on him. Seeing that the fist with the force of the wind was about to hit his stomach, Baidun crossed his shurikens to block in front of him. With a bang, Baidun's body was sent flying directly, and he bumped into an unknown number of trees before stopping. The shuriken was bent out of shape. Ahem, the power of this fist is really terrifying. Fortunately, it was blocked by the flow of chakra. If you block one punch, do you still have a chance to block the second punch? Hehe, I don't know how much chakra is left in your body. It has lasted for such a long time under such exquisite control, even Tsunade will feel tired here. Shenyi nodded secretly. It turned out that this guy has been calculating his chakra all the time. In fact, Baidun made a wrong calculation. The moment Shenyi mastered the strange power was at its peak state. The control over chakra can be said to be very subtle, with almost no consumption. Baidun's words became an opportunity for Shenyi, who was going to pretend to be tired to provoke his attack, so as to kill him directly. Have you seen all this? But do you really think that without chakra, you can defeat me, or even kill me. There was a faint sweat on Shenya's forehead, and the exhausted details were made to the extreme, just for the blunt attack. But he didn't expect him to make a very unexpected move. Feeling Shen Yi's exhaustion, Bai Dun turned around and ran towards the village, completely giving up his bottom line and dignity as a member of the public. Shen Yi didn't realize what the hell this guy was doing for a while, but when Bai Dun's figure was about to disappear, Shen Yi finally realized it. Dang Tang Chunin actually ran away when he said that he would run away, it really doesn't give him any face. Shen Yi quickly chased after him. If he really let this guy run away, he would not be able to hide these secrets. Looking at the direction in which Baidu was escaping, Shen Yi threw 2 shurikens with imprints in succession, and the whistling sound rang out in Baidu's ears. This guy's shuriken level is really as clumsy as the rumors say, no wonder he will become the laughing stock of his classmates. Split the Thunder God technique. Shen Yi folded his hands on his chest, operated the chakra and teleported directly to the position of the imprinted shuriken. Before Bai Dun could react to everything, Shen Yi was already standing in front of him, with a mocking smile on his lips. Aren't you going to run away? Why did you run in front of me? Before Baidu could open his mouth, Shen Yi's palm became huge and directly pinched him in his own palm, and threw him directly towards the thorny tree trunk in the distance. The appalling scene appeared in Shen Yi's line of sight, and after taking a deep breath, Shen Yi turned and left the forest. Along the way, the image of Baidu's death lingered in Shen Yi's mind. Although he was ready for a life-and-death battle after traveling here, Shen Yi would inevitably feel a little uncomfortable in his heart if he really killed a ninja with his own hands. Desperately, he returned home, greeted Tsunade briefly, and then returned to his room and closed the door tightly. Tsunade looked in the direction of Kamiya's room suspiciously, and shook his head helplessly. What did this brat go through outside? Why did he suddenly feel so depressed? Forget it or ignore it. A few days passed in a blink of an eye, and Shen Yi had recovered from that feeling, as if nothing had happened in the classroom of Ninja Academy. The sunlight outside was shining in the classroom, and Shen Yi leaned lazily by the window, already drowsy. Suddenly there was a loud noise outside. Shen Yi shook his head and looked in the direction of the door. It was a familiar figure. Shen Yi, come out for me, don't think I don't know that it's your good deed. Danzo shouted and rushed into the classroom, but was stopped by the teacher in front of him. Although Danzo's strength is very strong, but each perform their duties, the leader of ANBU can't extend his hand to the Ninja Academy. Shen Yi scratched his head. The matter of Baidu's death was still exposed, and Danzo immediately locked the murderer on Shen Yi. After all, Baiden's task is to hide in the dark and observe Shen Yi, so his death must be inseparable from Baiden. Teacher, I just go out, can he kill me in broad daylight? Run back to the classroom at any time if something happens, I can protect you. Shen Yi nodded, and left the classroom gracefully. Others in the classroom looked at Shen Yi, who was gradually disappearing, with incredulous eyes. Being able to make the leader of the ANBU in the village so angry, could it be that Shen Yi has stabbed something big recently? Shikajiu and Minato looked at each other and nodded, ready to rush out at any time. Shen Yi, you are so courageous now that you even dare to kill the members of ANBU. I will arrest you now. Brother Danzo, save me, what does the death of ANBU members have to do with me? Danzang was at a loss for words for a while, and he couldn't tell the matter of dispatching Baiden to observe secretly. Without contact, Bai Dun's death has nothing to do with Shen Yi at all, so there is no way to bring him back. You wait for me. Leaving a ruthless sentence, Danzo left the Ninja Academy directly. Looking at the direction of his actions, it seemed that he was going to Hokage's office to find an explanation. Shen Yi is not worried about this at all. The old ghost of the third generation is very thoughtful. Even if the suspicion is on his head, he will not take any action. After Danzo left, Shen Yi did not choose to return to the classroom. I wanted to take advantage of the sunshine to have a good sleep, but was interrupted by Danzo. Teacher, my mind has been slightly frightened, can I go home and have a good rest? Luju and Minato, you two are accompanying Shen Yi. I'm worried that there will be danger on the road. The teacher deeply understands that Danzo is a person who will take revenge, so he asks Luju and Minato to send Shen Yi home safely. After leaving the academy, Shikajiu and Minato couldn't bear their inner curiosity and kept asking what happened. Shen Yi told these two people about the death of ANBU member, skipped all the things between himself and that guy, and cleared up all his relationships. It seems to be the action of that guy. Why can't these old stubborn people in the village figure it out? It's something that can be easily solved. Yeah, the enemy we met has not been caught yet, and now even the members of ANBU have been killed. But this is also good. Danzo will join the team looking for him, and there will be a lot of time left. Shenyi nodded symbolically, but he was thinking about another thing in his heart, who was the guy he met that day. In his memory, he had met that guy more than once, except for one real friction. That person was very quiet, but his eyes kept falling on him. Could it be that the system in his mind was discovered by that guy? Guys like that don't exist in this world. You two should be careful. I'll go back before that person is caught. Shenyi stayed at the door of the house and watched Luju and Minato disappear at the corner of the street. Instead of opening the door of the room, he turned and walked towards the forest. Baidu's death has already been revealed, and the third generation will send ninjas there to search for clues. Shenyi needs some simple guidance from the past. Sure enough, the outskirts of the forest were surrounded by several ninjas, and they all wore masks, which seemed to be members of ANBU. Looking at it from a distance, Shenyi didn't approach rashly. Under the leadership of Danzo, these guys have already regarded Shenyi as their #1 enemy. Even if they can't make casual moves in the village, they won't be treated well. It seems that we need to think of another way to guide it. I don't know what the old man of the third generation is doing. Chapter 31. After leaving the forest, Shenyi walked directly towards the office, ready to directly test the tone of the third Hokage. Pushing open the door, Sandai was standing in front of the window and looking forward quietly, thinking about something, and didn't feel the appearance of Shenyi. Master 3 generations, what are you thinking about? Oh, it's Shenyi. Sandai turned around with a smile, and nothing could be seen in his eyes, as if no ninja was killed in the village at all. Shenyi took a few steps forward and sat down directly at the table. Danzo suddenly appeared at the academy today, saying that his ANBU members were killed, and pointed all the evidence to me. Is there such a thing? It seems that I need to find that guy and have a good talk. Don't the 3 generations of adults know about this? I have sent people to surround it and search for evidence. Have you found anything? The 3-generation-old man looked hesitant to speak, then shook his head slightly. Shenyi secretly likes it. Even if he finds the evidence, he will not lock the target on his own head. After all, the only trace of ninjutsu that can be seen is Mu-dun. However, in the entire ninja world, almost all the ninjas who can use would escape ninjutsu or in ANBU, and in the end they will only think that there is something wrong inside ANBU. That guy is getting more and more rampant. Not only does he appear in public, he even begins to assassinate the ninjas in the village. Sandai nodded, and now he can only count the death of ANBU members on the guy who has not been found. Shenya's goal has been achieved, and no one except Danzo suspects him. After all, to everyone, Shenya is just a child. Even if Fu Uchiha, who was a ninja, was defeated in some previous trainings, it also does not mean that he can leapfrog to kill the ninja. In history, no one guy can fight across 2 levels. Jiraiya has also stepped up his search efforts, and I believe this guy can be arrested in a short time. I hope so, and I hope that no one in the village will continue to be in danger. After all, Shenyi got up and was about to leave the office. He had already achieved his goal, so there was no need to stay here any longer. Just after leaving the office, a suspicious figure flashed in front of Shenyi, looking extremely familiar. This guy is so arrogant that he came here directly to eavesdrop. Is the protection of the village just a display? Originally wanted to catch up to check the situation, Shenyi gave up this plan after thinking about it carefully. At this time, he was eager, and in Danzo's heart, it was more certain that he was the opponent who killed Baidu, and he could only do so without being surprised. Shaking his head, Shenyi walked slowly towards the house, and met Ding Zuo on the side of the road by a very coincidence. Kamiya, Danzo didn't do anything to you, did he? Why did you even hear about it? Has it spread in the village? That's right, members of ANBU have come to the family to conduct some investigations, and found some clues of ninjutsu in the forest. Shenyi waved his hand. He didn't expect Danzo to care so much about the casualties this time. It seems that he insisted on doing harm to himself. But if Danzo and Shenyi hadn't had a grudge first, he wouldn't have set his eyes on the child Shenyi at all. That's a dignified chunin. If I kill it, I won't hide myself at all. Ding Zuo rubbed his chin and agreed with Shen Yi's point of view very much. He could kill the chunin in the Ninja Academy period, which can be called a genius among geniuses. The village will not be disadvantageous to a talented ninja because of the loss of an ANBU member. This is the cruel rule of the ninja world. The two walked forward side by side with a common goal in their hearts, which is yield ramen. Ding Zuo was worried that Shenye would have a psychological burden, and took the initiative to spend with Shenye. There was nothing in his heart that could not be solved by eating. It happened that Shenye was a little hungry, so he silently accepted Ding Zuo. Looking at the steaming ramen in front of him, Shenye wanted to compete with Ding Zuo in speed, but when he turned his head, Ding Zuo patted his stomach in satisfaction. Sensing Shenye's different gaze, Ding Zuo scratched his head in embarrassment, and took the ramen in Yi Li's hand again and put it down. Don't be surprised by my speed, I'm usually like this bowl one will accompany you slowly. It's okay, if you want to destroy it quickly, you can do whatever you want, and I will be fast too. Shen Yi took a deep breath, put all the ramen in his mouth and chewed carefully. Ding Zuo's eyes lit up, and he gave Shen Yi a thumbs up. It was the first time he had seen someone with a speed that was almost as fast as his own, and his admiration for Shen Yi increased a bit in his heart. The picture of two people eating ramen is very strange, like a gangster. If it weren't for the fact that he was happy to be well informed, he might have regarded these two guys as freaks, guys who blocked his business here. Ding Zuo, have you kept up with your recent practice? Chakra's control cannot be lost for a day. Don't worry, Shen Yi, according to what you said, I'm working hard to practice every day, and the Chudao family will flourish in my hands. Shen Yi nodded. In the original book, the ninjutsu of the Autumn Dao family was not very lethal. However, it was only when they got in touch with them that they realized that they didn't know enough about their own ninjutsu all the time, and the technique of body doubling can achieve unexpected effects when released just right. And Shen Yi is going to pass on this effect to Chudao Dingzhou little by little, so that while growing the family and the village, he can also have a capable assistant by his side. Two children, have we met somewhere? A guy without a ninja mark on his body walked up to Shen Yi and Ding Zuo, and greeted them proactively. Ding Zuo turned his head slightly to look at Shen Yi, and he had never seen this guy in his memory, so he must be talking to Shen Yi. Shen Yi frowned, although the guy in front of him looked very strange, but Shen Yi knew who he was. Appeared with a different face. Do you know how much the village wants to catch you now? What nonsense are you talking about, kid? I just passed by and saw that you two are more familiar with each other. Oh, is that so? But we haven't seen you at all. Shen Yi shrugged indifferently, and his eyes fell on him, wanting to see how long this guy can hide. At this time, there are ninjas scattered all over the village, ordinary ninjas and some ANBU members. On the one hand, it was to capture the enemy who appeared in the village, and on the other hand, it was sent by Danzo to observe Shen Yi. The guy standing in front of Shen Yi didn't seem to know what happened in the village, and he looked ready to move. Ding Zuo, if we fight now, will we be caught by the ninjas around? Ding Zuo scratched his head and didn't understand why Shen Yi asked this all of a sudden, but he nodded subconsciously. Little friend, are you reminding me by saying this all of a sudden? Uncle, thank you for your kindness. That guy patted Shen Yi on the head, straightened his body and walked towards the sparsely populated direction, ready to change into another identity and continued to observe in the village. The expression on Shen Yi's face changed, and he cursed inwardly. If that guy was discovered at this time, even if he jumped into the Yellow River, he wouldn't be able to clean it up. After all, the act of patting the head is too intimate. Ding Zuo curiously asked what happened there. Shen Yi shook his head, and didn't want to tell the simple Ding Zuo. But Ding Zuo believed in Shen Yi unconditionally, and knew in his heart that he would not harm him, so he didn't continue to ask. After instructing Ding Zuo, Shen Yi watched the sky gradually darken and prepared to return home, believing that Tsunade already knew about the death of ANBU members. Sure enough, when he opened the door, Tsunade was sitting at the table flipping through scrolls one after another. Sister Tsunade, Danzo almost took me back today. What, you're not hurt, are you? Tsunade hurriedly got up and walked to Kamiya, checking his body up and down. I'm fine, it's just that some ANBU people in the village were killed. Maybe we're going to war. While speaking, Shenyi's body trembled slightly, as if remembering something bad. Feeling the embrace of Shenyi by his side, knowing what war means to Shenyi, he just wants to comfort Shenyi right now. I'm fine, Tsunade-san, I've become very strong now. I believe in you. Our Shenyi is the strongest person in the world, and my sister will protect you well. Without continuing to discuss the village, Tsunade carried Shenya back to the room, and kissed him lightly on the forehead. Accompanied by the faint moonlight shining in the room, Shenyi let out a slight snoring sound after a while, and the experience of the day was enough for him to slowly digest. A few days passed, the guy finally exposed himself, and the third generation sent many ninjas to arrest him. Shenyi instantly joined the arresting team. As long as that guy is caught, it can completely offset the village's misunderstanding of him. Shenyi, the Ninja Academy has informed us that we don't need to pass these few days, maybe it's because we are worried that we will become oil bottles. It's a great opportunity for us to perform. Minato looked at Shenyi differently, seeing his desire to fight just around the corner, and seemed to understand something. Kamiya took Minato directly to Hokage's office. Many ninjas had already gathered in the room, including a few faces Kamiya was very familiar with. Jiraiya and Tsunade are also among them. That guy is in the forest not far from the village. I now order you to form a temporary ninja coalition to bring that guy back. Yes, Hokage-sama. Yes, Hokage-sama. Everyone responded again and again, and jumped out of the office several times in a row, leaving only Shenyi and Minato standing there looking at each other. The third generation turned around and looked at the two of them. What's the matter with you two? In such a special period, it's better to go home obediently. How could we be missing the two of us in the battle? I ask Hokage-sama for permission to join us. It's too dangerous. We don't know what kind of strength that guy has. Being able to hide in the village for such a long time is definitely not something you two can deal with. Spreading her hands, Shenyi knew that this would be the result, and all of this was within her expectations. The purpose of bringing Minato here is just to let everyone know that he is involved, and it would be great if he could take down that guy with his own hands. Patting Minato on the shoulder, Shenyi turned and walked outside. Following the traces left by those guys, Shenyi pulled the water gate and chased out of the village, but unexpectedly was blocked by the mountain city Qingye. It's dangerous outside, you two don't leave casually. Brother Shancheng, other people don't know, are you going to stop me? Aoba Yamashiro frowned. Before that, he and Zilai also joined forces to test this Shenyi, and Zilai had already told himself the final result. Be careful, Aoba Yamashiro thought over and over again, but slowly turned his body sideways to let Minato and Shenyi pass by. Without any stop, the two rushed directly to the depths of the forest, ready to find the figure of that guy at the first time. Shenyi believes that he will meet those guys before Jiraiya. After all, he has already felt something, he always appears in front of him. There was a murderous intent lurking in the silent forest. Minato and Shenyi walked forward inseparably, watching the surrounding situation with full attention. With a bang, a shuriken flew out from the side, and flew straight towards Shenyi's head. Minato snorted coldly, leapt forward and kicked the shuriken aside. The two forces intertwined, and the shuriken plunged deeply into the tree trunk. That arrives so fast. Shenyi stopped and quietly looked at the direction where the shuriken flew out. A figure walked out slowly with gentle steps, but his face was wearing a mask, so it was not clear what kind of face it was. This attire undoubtedly made Minato stunned, and the forehead guard on his forehead showed that he was a ninja from Konoha village. ANBU in the village, or is that guy pretending to be someone? I can't take care of so much now, cheer up, otherwise we too won't be able to meet in the future. Minato nodded, and while the guy on the other side was still at ease, he rushed out and threw several shurikens in a row towards him. HMPH, don't show off your little tricks to shame people. That guy didn't move at all, and the shuriken was stagnant in midair, unable to move forward. Shenyi frowned and quickly stretched forward a few times to pull the water door back. If he continued to walk forward, he might have been seriously injured by now. What happened? How? A very powerful chakra magnetic field appeared around that guy, and he is completely in control of his surroundings at this time. So, the two of us have no chance to get close to him at all. Shenyi didn't answer Minato's question, but took a few steps forward and stood 1 centimeter in front of the magnetic field, with his arms folded on his chest, quietly looking at the guy in front of him. Now he just wants to determine what this guy's identity is. If it was a member of ANBU, Shenye would drag Minato out of here immediately and report this matter to the 3rd Hokage. If it is the guy who has been hiding in the village, the two of them must be prepared to go all out. You seem to have been watching me all the time, and you appeared as soon as you walked into the forest. Of course, in order to complete the task assigned to me by Danzo, my eyes have never left your body. Shenye frowned. There was still no way to convince him that it was no secret that he and Danzo were at odds in the village. Don't you know that your teammate was killed by a guy hiding his identity in the village? What's the matter with throwing everything on me? HMPH, I'm just fulfilling Danzo-sama's order. What does the death of other people have to do with me? The corner of Shenye's mouth raised slightly, nodded towards Shenye, turned around and rushed in the other direction. Although Minato didn't know what happened, he followed closely behind. The guy from ANBU froze in place, not understanding why Shenye suddenly chose to run away. There was no communication along the way, until the ninja of Muya village appeared in sight, and the speed of the two slowly slowed down. Shenye, what happened? He is Danzo's subordinate, and fighting him will not do us any good. It seems that it will take 3 generations to advocate justice for me. Kamiya and Minato quickened their pace and came in front of Jiraiya and Tsunade. Why did you two little guys appear here? The 3rd generation has clearly told you not to participate in this battle. Sister Tsunade, this battle is not only for the village, but also to help me and brother Jiraiya get our names right, so I have to participate no matter what. Tsunade shook his head helplessly. He knew that Shenye was very stubborn. Even if he let him go back to the village now, it wouldn't help. On the contrary, the 2 little guys will be even more dangerous without the large army in Muya village. Don't fall behind. He was nervous during the war, and after a few words of advice from Tsunade, he continued to explore with the team. According to intelligence, that guy was not far ahead at this time. Time passed little by little, and everyone tensed their nerves, ready to enter the fighting state at any time. Suddenly, there was a gust of wind around. Tsunade raised his hand to signal the team to stop advancing. The team spread out and surrounded Minato and Kamiya in the middle. It looks like an enchantment. That guy is obviously well prepared for us. Leave the enchantment to me. As long as you find the formation eye, you can easily break it. A plain-looking ninja appeared in the crowd. Shenye had no impression of this guy at all, but the huge package on his back caught Shenye's attention. Jumping 3 or 2, he appeared on the edge of the enchantment, took out several small devices in his backpack and arranged them neatly. Ninja method, the art of destroying the barrier. The silent battle started quietly, and there were waves of fluctuations in the surrounding air. From Shenye's perception, the barrier seemed to be gradually disappearing. Both Tsunade and Jiraiya were concentrating on observing the surrounding situation. Even though the barrier was about to disappear, there was no abnormality on their faces. Is this the quality that a real ninja needs? Don't be surprised. It seems that we still have a lot to learn. This is almost not just a time for the 2 of us to claim credit. Learning is the most important thing. Minato nodded. At first, he simply thought that Shenye was so eager to prove his innocence. Looking at it now, my thoughts are a little too simple, and I can't help but look a little higher at Shenye. The ninja with the luggage on his back returned to the team, the surrounding barriers completely disappeared, and Tsunade organized the team to continue moving forward. According to Shenye's understanding of this place, if you continue to move forward, you will soon walk out of the forest and enter the range of other forces. If it really went to other forces, the arrest work will undoubtedly increase some difficulties. At the edge of the forest, a person stood quietly on the treetop with his hands folded in front of his chest, his eyes fixed on the ninjas of Konoha village. I have been hiding for so long, and I finally waited until you found me. There seems to be no fight between Muya village and Yenian village. Are you trying to start a war? I have left that useless village. Please remember my name, Wu Tian. Tsunade frowned. The final trial of such a defected ninja would not be handed over to Konoha village, and it would be handed over to Yenian village for the final judgment. Wu Tian, this ninja has never been heard of before, and his defection was not even announced by Yenian village. I see, this guy must be an ordinary ninja, so we don't need to worry about anything at all. Jiraiya also nodded, expressing his agreement with Shenya's words. The state of underestimating the enemy is not allowed, but it is also not allowed to overestimate the enemy too much. Everything must be carried out according to the latest and most real. But in Shen Yi's view, Wu Tian had no chance of winning at all. Facing a team composed of many ninjas, not to mention this ninja without a name, even Tsuchikage has the power to fight here. Tuden, earth-flowing river. Without giving everyone a chance to think, Wu Tian quickly made seals with both hands and summoned a swamp of mud under Shen Yi's feet. Shen Yi instantly felt a weightless sensation under his feet, and his body staggered and nearly fell down. Fortunately, Minato pulled Shenya's arm quickly, and the two shook their bodies twice to stabilize their bodies. Tsunade and Jiraiya also jumped onto the tree trunk and looked down at the place where they had just stopped. The attack and killing are decisive. It seems that this time they have encountered a difficult opponent. We've been partners for such a long time, what kind of opponents haven't met before, what is there to worry about? Tsunade rolled his eyes and Zilai also glanced at him, and rushed towards Wu Tian with fierce force under his feet. Shen Yi touched his chin. For the ninjas of Yenian village, the forest is not an excellent place to fight. But Wu Tian must have his own reasons for choosing this place. We will only get in the way when we have nothing to do, go. Minato nodded, distanced himself from Shenye, and rushed towards Wu Tian's position along the direction of the forest. One left and one right, Tsunade and Minato surrounded this guy tightly in the middle, and if they wanted to escape, they could only run backwards and forwards. Shen Yi squatted on the tree trunk quietly observing Wu Tian's movements, and was ready to strike at any time. Wu Tian shrugged his shoulders, and his body fell to the ground in a rampage. At the same time, he operated chakra in his meridians without stopping at all. A rumbling sound appeared in Wu Tian's body, and the operation of chakra had reached its peak. There are some differences in Shen Yi. This guy must have his adventures, otherwise he would never have such a strong chakra. Minato and Tsunade approached Wu Tian almost at the same time, punching his head straight with both fists. Wu Tian grinned at the corner of his mouth, and suddenly raised his head to look at Shen Yi. His lips moved without making a sound, and the whole person suddenly disappeared in place. He actually told me it's all up to him. What does that mean? Shen Yi understood Wu Tian's lips, but at this moment Minato and Tsunade's fists were about to fall together. Sister Tsunade, put away your strength quickly, otherwise Minato will be blown away by you. Understood. At the critical moment, Tsunade contracted the muscles above his fist, sealing chakra on his arm. The fists collided together without making a sound, and Minato took a deep breath, looking like the rest of his life after a catastrophe. If Tsunade really hit him with all his strength, Minato would have already flew into the air at this time, and half of his body would be shattered. You brat, Master Tsunade, now is not the time to talk about these things. The most important thing right now is to kill that guy. Shen Yi and I will help you well. Just don't be a waste of help, we don't have time to protect you two little guys. An untimely voice came out from the crowd. Shen Yi looked at the source of the voice, it was a member of ANBU. He couldn't help but shook his head. It seemed that Bai Dun's death completely connected him with ANBU. Even if it was finally confirmed that Bai Dun was killed by Wu Tian, there was no way to ease the relationship. As long as Danzo exists for a day, Shenya's reputation will be bad in ANBU. Then you're going to bring that guy back, he's yelling here. Tsunade gave the guy a blank look, turned around and plunged into the forest. Although as a member of ANBU he could ignore some of the rules in the village, the principle that Tsunade should not mess with also applies in ANBU, so he didn't dare to say a word. Shenya pouted and followed Tsunade to the depths of the forest. After passing through the tree trunks, Shenyi saw Wu Tian's figure again. At this time, his whole body was burning with light blue light, which looked very strange. Could it be that some extraordinary method was used? Why does this guy suddenly look like this, as if he will explode in the next second? The chakra in his body is very chaotic at this time. He must have used some forbidden techniques to improve his ability in a short period of time. Shen Yi nodded, and looked at Wu Tian quietly in a fighting posture. Minato stood not far from Shen Yi and threw out two shurikens with imprints, but Wu Tian easily dodged them and stuck them into the tree trunk behind. Strange power. Shen Yi exerted force under his feet and rushed towards Wu Tian, but Tsunade wanted to stop him, but it was too late. Shen Yi landed in front of Wu Tian in the blink of an eye. Swinging his fist and bombarding Wu Tian's chest, Wu Tian snorted coldly and did not make any movements, letting his fist fall on his body. A force as strong as Tsunade fell on the blue light, but found that it couldn't make any waves at all. A force of attraction appeared on Shen Yi's fist, and he tried to pull back his arm but found that no matter what, he couldn't use any strength. Seeing this, Tsunade jumped to Wu Tian's side and attacked him in the same way, trying to break Wu Tian's attention. Minato took the opportunity to run behind Shen Yi, and pulled Shen Yi out of the predicament with all his strength. Shen Yi squatted on the spot and recovered his body, but the chakra in his body was absorbed a lot just now, and his body became weaker. Fortunately, the immortal mode has been absorbing the natural power of the air to restore chakra. Seeing Tsunade and Wu Tian wrestling together, Shen Yi finally knew how terrifying a powerful ninja was. If he meets Wu Tian alone, once that guy is ready to kill, there is no way for him to escape now. It seems that you have to find a suitable opportunity before you can make a move. Otherwise, it's really easy to die in his hands. At this time, there are only 3 of us here, and the ninja troops from Konoha village have not yet arrived, so it will be more difficult. Whoever said we weren't here, leave it to us from now on. Jiraiya stood on the top of a tree with a huge scroll on his back, arms folded in front of his chest, quietly watching Wu Tian and Tsunade who were fighting. Shen Yi rolled a blank look at Yi. Since he had already appeared here, he didn't rush into the battle, he only cared about being cool on the spot. I said brother Jiraiya, sister Tsunade will not be able to resist. Jiraiya scratched his head, his body suddenly swooped down on the treetops, and landed between Wu Tian and Tsunade in the blink of an eye. Tsunade saw the light blue light burning around him, and knew that this was a tough battle, and there was no way to end the battle in a short time. One after another, more and more Muya village ninjas joined the battle, and more than a dozen ninjas surrounded Wu Tian in the middle. Shen Yi and Minato looked at each other and sat down on the wooden stake next to them. While admiring the splendid battle, they recorded these fighting skills in their hearts. Suddenly, Wu Tian broke through the encirclement circle formed by Tsunade, Jiraiya and the others, and quickly rushed towards Shen Yi and Minato. Shen Yi, be careful, this guy is rushing in the direction of you two. Let him come, the 2 of us are the ones who will be caught so easily, Flying Thunder God technique. Shen Yi grabbed Minato's shoulder with one hand, and directly cast the Flying Thunder God art, and his body disappeared in place with a whoosh. Not only Wu Tian, but even Tsunade froze in place. I have never seen Kamiya use such ninjutsu before. In Tsunade's memory, only the 2nd Hokage can master it. People of later generations read ancient books and also learned some practice skills about the Flying Thunder God art, but no one was able to truly succeed. What kind of ninjutsu is this? It went directly through the space. Am I right? A series of questions appeared in the team of Muya village ninjas, but they were quickly broken by Wu Tian's roar. I only know about the 2 runaways. I know that I can't get out of here today. I have to bring 2 backs to be enough. Wu Tian stretched out his right foot and tapped lightly on the ground, turned around in midair and continued to chase in the direction where Shen Yi appeared. But at this time, Tsunade and Jiraiya have been given enough opportunities to react, and they will not let him get any closer to Kamiya and Minato. Surrounded by the ninjas of Muya village again, Wu Tian obviously couldn't cope with it, and the long-term chakra burning had already made him a little bit powerless. Tudin, Yansu collapses. Wu Tian quickly made seals with his hands, and the surrounding ground began to shake faintly, and huge stones suddenly broke off the ground and smashed towards every ninja in Konoha village. Immortal method, thousands of hair needles. The long white hair on the back of Jiraiya instantly became huge, protecting all the ninjas of Konoha village underneath, as did Minato and Kamiya. The stone fell on the hair, which was as strong as iron, and was completely shattered, turning into small stones and rolling to the ground. Wu Tian took this opportunity to turn around and rush towards Shen Yi, never giving up the urge to kill these 2 little guys. Shen Yi, who had been holding his breath all the time, looked at Wu Tian who was coming towards him, and suddenly burst into anger. You really think I'm easy to bully, and then I'll let you feel what the king's anger is. Minato felt Kamiya's mood, and his desire to fight was instantly ignited. He took out a few shurikens from his ninja pocket and threw them at Wu Tian, buying a short time. Art fire escape ho fireball. Shen Yi condensed all the chakra in his body into his mouth, took a deep breath and exhaled a huge flame, which exploded when he was about to touch Wu Tian. The sky was suddenly lit up a bit, the flames were burning fiercely. Wu Tian supported the blue light and marched out of the flames bit by bit. Seeing this, Jiraiya also quickly exhaled towards the flame, and the strong wind cooperated with the flame to completely submerge Wu Tian in it. Done, there is no dungeon hall. Intermittent stones fell from the sky and fell into the flames. All the stones came together to form a protective shell that enveloped Wu Tian. Shen Yi frowned. This guy can perform ninjutsu several times stronger than himself. After the explosion of chakra, he must find an opportunity to steal it into his own hands. At this time seemed to stand still, and everyone's eyes were fixed on the flame until the flame slowly dissipated. Wu Tian jumped through his protective shell, and rushed towards Shen Yi with his body. The technique of multiplying part of the strange power. Shen Yi's fist became huge in the blink of an eye, and it bombarded Wu Tian in the sky. With the strange force, it bit the air and made a burst of noise. Tsunade stared blankly at Shen Yi, never expecting that the younger brother he always wanted to protect had grown to such an extent. Even the ninjas of the Chudao family would take a long time to master some of the multiplication techniques, but Shen Yi was already able to use them proficiently. Wu Tian, who was in midair, had no way to dodge the huge fist, and his body was hit firmly. Successful. I hope this can hit Wu Tian hard, and it's best to solve this trouble at once. You guys are too naive. I was defeated so easily by you. Didn't I spend so long lurking in the village for nothing? Wu Tian's words aroused deep doubts in Shen Yi's heart. Since he had defected from Yanyan village and became a traitor, what was the purpose of lurking in Muya village? If it wasn't for the purpose of passing the news back to the village, there is no need to bear the burden of humiliation here. Jiraiya and Tsunade also asked this question, and both of them put away their hands at the same time, and looked calmly at Wu Tian in front of them. It has become a rebellious ninja, so what do you want to get in Muya village? Is there anything here that is worth lurking for so long? This is my secret. I told you that I am afraid that every guy here will betray Konoha village and look for the truth. The truth? What truth? Find it yourself, ha ha ha. Wu Tian's attitude is very tough, and he doesn't want to reveal his purpose at all. As long as he is caught, Yubixi has many ways to pry his mouth open, and then he can know all the problems about him. Just come. Kamiya Minato and you two are always ready to give him the deadliest blow. It is good. Yes. Tsunade and Jiraiya also took refuge in Wu Tian at the same time, and the other Muya village ninjas performed their duties and prepared to close the net. Having been entangled for such a long time, Wu Tian's body was already on the verge of collapsing, struggling forcefully with the breath in his heart. Shen Yi expanded his chakra perception, and everyone's figures appeared in his mind, and every movement was slowed down several times, so he could easily analyze what the next move would be. Tsunade took the lead in fighting Wu Tian again with close-to-body skills, forcing Wu Tian to the ground bit by bit. Jiraiya also cooperated with Tsunade to slowly send Wu Tian into the prepared trap. Although Wu Tian didn't want to follow the wishes of these two guys, he found that he had lost control of the battle. Shen Yi, it's now. Partial doubling technique. Shen Yi's arm suddenly became extremely huge, and he grabbed Wu Tian who was about to fall to the ground in his own hands. At this time, the blue light on the surface of Wu Tian's body was almost exhausted, and he was completely unable to open Shen Yi's huge palm, so he could only struggle indiscriminately. Well done, I can finally bring this guy back. Both Tsunade and Jiraiya had relaxed smiles on their faces. Minato took a deep breath, and was ready to rest for a few days after returning home, digesting everything he saw and heard in this battle. Jiraiya spread the huge scroll behind his back on the ground, bit his fingers lightly and slapped the scroll. Sealing technique. A burst of suction came out from the scroll, and Wu Tian shouted that his body was twisted and absorbed into the scroll, and then Zilai also closed it again and put it on his back. You can go back and report to the 3 generations of adults. You two little guys are the main heroes. Shen Yi nodded. This time it was about his own reputation, and he would definitely not give up the title of main hero. A group of people returned the same way in the direction of travel, and directly returned to Hokage's office and handed the scroll to the hands of the third Hokage. The hidden dangers in the village have finally been resolved. You all contributed a lot this time. If you have any rewards you want, feel free to offer them. The Junin including Jiraiya and Tsunade shook their heads and turned to leave, leaving Minato, Kamiya and Sandai Hokage behind. Minato tugged at the corner of Shenya's clothes, wanting to leave now, but forget about the reward. However, Shenyi has already thought about what kind of reward he will get, and it will definitely not be too much for the third generation. Then I won't be polite. I hope the third generation of adults can give me a chance to contact Wu Tian alone. The third Hokage frowned, unable to understand why Shenyi wanted such a reward. To others, it was not a reward at all. All kinds of speculation appeared in Sarutobi Hiruzen's heart, but they didn't show on his face. It can satisfy you, Minato. What reward do you want? I'll answer you for Minato. It's time for Minato to appreciate those ninjutsu banned by the first Hokage. Sandai hesitated for a moment. He knew in his heart how talented Minato was. Perhaps those seemingly dangerous ninjutsu could really be inherited by him. I promise you too, but we need to deal with some things in the village before we can proceed. Although Shenye really wanted to meet Wu Tian alone before the village trial started, it seemed that the third generation would never give him such an opportunity, and it would even arouse some doubts. After leaving Hokage's office, Minato and Shenye went back to their own homes, leaving Shenye alone on the street aimlessly. Ninja Academy has suspended its studies due to what happened in the village these days, and it is not known when it will be able to restart. After Wu Tian was captured, Shenye's reputation as a voyeur was completely shaken off, and the female ninja in the women's bathhouse that day was full of guilt towards Shenye. Back at the door of the house, Shenye found countless food and small gifts piled up by the window, each with a note expressing his apology. Having nothing to do, Shenyi read all the notes, and found that there was no letter of apology from Uchiha Makoto. What's the matter with this guy? He taught her how to practice ninjutsu for nothing, and the number one who won the family competition actually forgot about me. Shenyi pouted but didn't take this matter to heart. After all, the guy pretending to be Jiraiya has already been caught, and the fake has become real. Just as he was about to open the door and enter the house, Shenyi found a familiar figure standing not far away, leaning against a street lamp with his arms folded. Uchiha Makoto, why are you in a daze here? Shenyi, you are finally back. I have been waiting for you here for a long time. Is something wrong? What happened that day was my mistake. I recognized the wrong person. I shouldn't have been suspecting that you were the guy who was spying on us. It's been such a long time, so don't keep bringing it up. Besides, I didn't blame you at all, otherwise I wouldn't teach you how to practice. Makoto nodded fiercely. The stone hanging in her heart finally fell down, and she looked at Shenye innocently. If you have nothing else to do, go home. The village has not completely recovered its calm. Makoto waved her hand towards Kamiya, and walked towards the Uchiha family bouncing around. Seeing her happy back, Shenyi shook his head helplessly. His reputation was finally completely corrected. Back home, Shenyi leaned comfortably on the sofa, thinking about some things about Wu Tian. A few days passed in the blink of an eye, and Shenyi got the latest news from Tsunade, and Wu Tian had already admitted everything. Not only did he pretend to be himself and peep that day, he even blamed himself for killing ANBU members. Shenyi couldn't understand this very much. This guy obviously didn't do these things, but he still admitted it. By the way, Shenyi, Master Sandai asked you to find a time to meet him recently, perhaps to ask you something about Wu Tian. I'll go right now. Shenyi jumped up directly on the bed, opened the window and climbed to the side of the street, and walked leisurely towards Hokage's office. Tsunade shook his head helplessly. Seeing Shenye approaching the office little by little, Sandai's face didn't show any expression, and his body disappeared into the office in a flash. Shenyi, over here. The voice of the third generation appeared in the sky above Shenye, and Shenye looked around and found that he was standing on the shadow rock in Muya village at this time, with his own nose under his feet. Shenye sighed softly, and jumped to Sandai's side in 2s and 3s. Following the nose of the statue of the third generation, Hiruzuru Sarutobi walked into the eyes with Kamiya. Only at this moment did Shenyi realize that Yingyan was hiding something mysterious. The eyes of each statue were a separate secret room, and perhaps important enemies were also imprisoned in other secret rooms. Passing through the dark corridor, Shenyi saw Wu Tian under the dim light. Both hands were controlled by iron chains, and only the body could move easily. Looking at the injuries on his body, it was obvious that he had been severely tortured. Sandai cast a look at Shenyi, turned around and left, guarding his eyes to prevent Wu Tian from escaping. It's a pity that I didn't kill you, little guy. I gave you a chance to humiliate me here. I have a few questions that I am very confused about, and I hope to get some answers from you. Ha ha. A mocking laugh came from Wu Tian's mouth, but Shenyi didn't show anything about it. You obviously didn't do those things, why do you still admit it? I have to be convinced by Muya Village's methods. Before that, I never thought that there would be such torture. I didn't do it for you. Shenyi frowned. This guy really knew that he did all those things, but he gritted his teeth and admitted to himself under these punishments. If it was just the third generation of Hokage, Wu Tian might not have suffered such serious injuries. It must be that Danzo wanted to get the information he wanted from his mouth, so he used ANBU's power to extract confessions by words and deeds. In Shenya's cognition, one of Danzo's subordinates is very good at these methods, and can explode the tortured mentality of a captured ninja. Anyway, thank you for helping me get rid of the suspicion. If I have a chance in the future, I will rescue you. Shenyi took a few steps forward, raised his hand and put it lightly on Wu Tian's shoulder, silently launching the systematic stealing skills in his heart. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully stealing Wu Tian's skill, Chakra Chaos. Steal cooldown. 3 hours. Hearing the prompt sound from the system, the corner of Shenya's mouth couldn't help but smile. The chakra turmoil used by Wu Tian has inherent defects, that is, it will increase the consumption of the body and can only last for a short time. However, after the system is stolen, all side effects disappear, and almost no consumption of chakra can be achieved when performing ninjutsu. Cooperating with the fairy mode, Shenyi is confident that when he meets Bai Dun again, he can kill him in a very short time without leaving any traces. After getting what he wanted, Shenyi turned around and was about to leave the cave. The dark environment inside really made Shenyi a little out of breath. Watching Shenyi's back gradually disappearing into the light and shadow, Wu Tian moved the corner of his mouth. Tomorrow I will be sent back to Yenian village, forget about saving me, if you have a conscience, burn some little secrets for me. Shenyi waved his hand gracefully. Since he had already promised to rescue him, he must fulfill his promise no matter where he was. What's more, Shenyi's heart is not only in Muya village, it is just a springboard for him to go to the next level, and one day he will gallop in the entire ninja world. Observing Shenyi's high-spirited appearance, Sandai knew that he had benefited a lot here. However, his own identity is Hokage, the supreme commander of the entire village, and he asked a child to verify what he got to damage his status and image. Out of the sight of the third Hokage, Shenyi couldn't wait to try the power of chakra turmoil. Unlike Wu Tian, Shenyi's body surface didn't change at all, but he felt a big change in his body. The flow of chakra has accelerated a lot, stimulating every meridian in the body. Sure enough, it's an amazing ninjutsu. The strange power condensed at this time may have surpassed Tsunade. Bumping his fist, he could feel the majestic energy contained in it, but looking at the streets around him, there was no place to vent it. The benefits he wants to get are already in his mind, and he doesn't know what is going on at the water gate. Put away all the ninjutsu releases, Shenyi rushed to Minato's house, knocked on the door several times in a row but got no response. This guy won't be confused by the forbidden technique and lose his mind. Worried about Minato's safety, Shenyi kicked the door hard and opened it, only to find that Minato was concentrating on watching the scroll in his hand. Even though the broken door dust flew to his face, there was no reaction. Shenyi couldn't help shaking his head helplessly. Minato, why don't you be so obsessed? You still have a lot of time to study in the future. It's Shenyi, I was so fascinated by watching it that I didn't notice your arrival. The scroll has been handed over to you, don't rush to practice for a while, go eat a bowl of steaming ramen to relieve the pressure in your heart. Shenyi could clearly feel the temperament exuding from Minato's body at this time, and at the same time, he could feel the exhaustion in his eyes. Perhaps he remained in this state last night, and it has remained the same until now. Stretching for a while, Minato hid the scroll in the corner of the house and prepared to leave with Shenye. But after walking a few steps, Minato ran back home again and took out the scroll. Standing in the room, Minato's eyes wandered. I'm afraid that someone has the idea of playing a scroll. Even if I carry it on my body, I don't feel at ease. Shenyi sighed and snatched the scroll from Minato's hand. You should rest assured that the scroll is with me. How can you become Hokage from a suspicious look in the future? You're right, if that's the case, put it on the table in a fair way. Shenyi grinned. Is this guy's brain circuit abnormal? It is placed on the table with great fanfare. It is strange that it is still on the table after eating ramen. The forbidden technique created by the second generation of Hokage is the inner yearning of many ninjas, but it cannot be loved. After discussing in the room for a while, Shenye finally took it with him, and took the initiative to look for Shenye when Minato was preparing to practice in the future. Ikiraku Ramen can't satisfy today's results, let's call Jakoza together. It's a good idea. Then call everyone together along the way. It's been a while since we got together. Why don't we split into two groups? The two hit it off immediately, and Shenyi went to bring the two girls to the small bridge. Minato, on the other hand, brought Luju and Ding Zuo together, and the group finally discussed and decided on what to eat and relax. Following the path he was familiar with, Shenye climbed over the wall and walked into the Hyuga family's house, just as Uexing was practicing in the open space. Uexing, take you out to play. It just so happens that Meishang is with me, let's go together. Shenyi nodded, which just saved him a lot of energy, and the three of them left Hinata's house and walked straight to the small bridge. But found that 3 or 2 guys have been waiting for a long time. Your movements are a bit slow, the 3 of us have been waiting here for a long time. Looking at the snack bags scattered on the ground, I already know. Ding Zuo scratched his head in embarrassment. In just a few minutes, he actually ate up all the snacks he was carrying. A group of people walked slowly along the streets of the village, their eyes scanning back and forth in the shops on both sides. Teiko Maruko, let's go here, shall we? Seeing the promotional poster by the window, Meishang's eyes began to shine brightly, and the saliva dripped down the corner of her mouth unconsciously. Shenyi secretly smiled. Unexpectedly, Meishang looks quiet on the surface, but deep down she is still a full-fledged foodie. Before Shenye could answer, Uexing had already raised his hands and jumped up. For a moment, Shenye even suspected that these two guys had colluded with everything in advance. Several people walked into the shop mightily. Looking at the boss and the proprietress, Shenyi felt a sense of familiarity. Ding Zuo kid is here, old rules. Apparently Ding Zuo is a frequent visitor here, and he is an old acquaintance with the boss here. It will double in a few days, and I'm very hungry now. The boss led a few people into a small comfortable room, which was just big enough to accommodate a few people. Only Shenye and his party were left in the room, and the door was closed tightly. Ding Zuo, it seems that you know this place very well. That's nature, not just here, every delicacy in the village has my traces. Shenyi gave Ding Zuo a thumbs up subconsciously. Sure enough, people in the Chudao family love food very much. The boss here looks familiar, do you know anything about them? It's right if they look familiar. The two of them belong to the Uchiha family, but they can't practice ninjutsu, so we opened octopus meatballs here. Shenyi suddenly realized, no wonder he saw an unusual temperament in the two of them. Even if you can't practice ninjutsu, you can still tell the difference between the Uchiha family and ordinary people at a glance. Minato looked absent-minded, thinking about the forbidden technique on the scroll all the time. The temporary crisis in the village has been resolved, and what we are about to face is the graduation of the Ninja Academy. Everyone must work hard. Don't worry, Shenye, with your help, we are bound to graduate. While several people were discussing enthusiastically, the boss gently opened the door and walked in with a cart full of delicacies. Meishang and Yuxing couldn't move their eyes away from the little octopus on the car. Before the little octopus was safely placed on the table, they caught it in their own bowls. Ding Zuo's eyes also radiated brilliance. Everything that can be eaten into his mouth is very important to him. The simple gathering continued until nightfall, and everyone patted their stomachs in satisfaction. There have been fewer people on the street, only some ninjas in a hurry. The huge team on Shenya's side is undoubtedly an existence on the street that attracts targets. It's them. A small sound came from a corner in the darkness, which did not attract the attention of Shenyi and others at all. What should we do? Should we rush up at this time? The scroll on Minato's body is now a priceless treasure. Are you crazy? There are 2 guys from the Hyuga family and the Akamichi family there, and Shenya is not a vegetarian. We may not have a chance of winning against Kamikaze Minato alone, so let's save it. The 3 of them hesitated again and finally disappeared into the darkness, planning to look for opportunities to snatch the forbidden scroll in Minato's hands in the future. At this time, Minato didn't know that he was being targeted, but the scroll would be in Shenya's hands except when he was practicing, so there was nothing to worry about. The moon gradually replaced the position of the sun, and Shenyi sent the 2 girls back to their respective homes. Suddenly, 3 masked guys appeared in front of Shenyi, blocking Shenyi's way, and all 3 of them held a shuriken in their hands. If you want to leave, hand over the forbidden scroll, otherwise I will make you look good. How beautiful. If it doesn't attract the attention of all the girls in the village, I don't agree. Shenyi's answer made the 3 speechless for a while, not knowing what to say. In fact, Shenyi saw through the identities of these 3 guys at a glance. They were little guys studying in the same classroom. It's just that he was fascinated by the forbidden technique for a while. Shenyi didn't want to do anything, just simply teach him a lesson. Art fire escape ho fireball. Suddenly, bright red flames appeared dazzlingly in the night sky. The 3 masked guys had never seen such a formation before, and they froze in place. The flame disappeared only a few centimeters away from them, and the scorching heat had already made the 3 guys sweat profusely. In the future, if you practice steadily, the forbidden technique is not something you can touch if you want to. After all, Shenyi jumped and disappeared into the night, jumping back and forth between the roofs and returning home. Forbidden scrolls are hard to find, and with the blessing of the system, Shenyi slowly opened the scrolls and spread them on the ground without hesitation. As if opening the door to a new world, many ninjutsu created by the second Hokage were all recorded, and Kamiya recorded them in his mind one by one. A long time passed unknowingly, and the sky turned pale. Shenyi stretched her waist to recover from the scroll, and it was amazing that she didn't feel a trace of fatigue. The fairy mode is automatically turned on, and the continuous natural force relieves the fatigue of the body. It really is a good ninjutsu. What are you talking to yourself? Have you forgotten what a few days are? Today. Terrible. Shenyi quickly put the scroll in his pocket, put on his clothes casually, and ran over the window to the ninja academy. The comfortable and warm vacation is over, and the next thing to face is still the boring college life. Without any stop along the way, Shenyi ran to the gate of the college in one breath, just in time for the second before the bell rang. Shenyi, you are late too. Uchiha Makoto slowly appeared beside Kamiya, as if she didn't care about being late at all. Why are you so calm? Aren't you afraid that today's teacher will suddenly add new items for those who are late? I've already asked. Today's teacher is also a late king, so there is no need to worry. Shenyi twitched the corners of his mouth twice. Sure enough, everyone in the big family would get news that they were one step ahead when they went to Ninja Academy. But I am very curious about who the teacher will be today, known as the late king. The 2 walked into the classroom side by side, and a murderous look instantly fell on Shenyi. Far away, Uchiha Fugaku saw the 2 people walking together, and couldn't help but feel angry. Minato raised his hand and beckoned Shenyi to sit over. Shenyi, this way. It's here. After waving hands with Uchiha Makoto, Kamiya walked into Shikaku and Minato's side. Both of them were also full of curiosity about today's teacher. I heard that today's teacher is quite special, and he is a ninja we are very familiar with. It seems that the title of late king is about to be implemented, and it has not yet appeared at this time. Shenyi spread her hands and lay down directly on the table. Although the fairy mode has been relieving her body's fatigue, she still couldn't help but want to sleep. In a trance, Shenyi fell asleep. Suddenly, Shenyi noticed that someone was shaking his arm crazily, so he slowly opened his hazy eyes. The Minato guy looked forward with a surprised expression on his face, and the strength in his hands only increased. Stop shaking, I'm already awake. Look, Shenyi, it really is a ninja we are very familiar with, but we didn't expect it to be him. Shenyi raised his head to look at the podium, but he didn't expect it to be Jiraiya. How could it be this guy? Are you going to teach us how to spy on girls taking a bath today? No matter what, Jiraiya-sama is one of the best ninjas in the village, and he will definitely teach me very powerful ninjutsu. Kamiya turned his head to look at Minato differently, after fighting together at that time. Minato seems to have begun to worship Jiraiya in his heart, and has a faint urge to become his apprentice. In the original book, Namikaze Minato became Jiraiya's apprentice after graduating from Ninja Academy, and it seems that nothing will change because of the appearance of Kamiya. In just a few minutes, Shenyi had completely recovered from his senses. Since it's brother Jiraiya, then listen carefully to what he will teach us. Minato nodded again and again, then looked forward intently, waiting for Jiraiya to speak. Jiraiya also stood on the podium with a smile. His eyes scanned the classroom back and forth, and finally fell on Shenyi. Hello students, the third generation of adults ordered me to teach you today, but I need the cooperation of a classmate for a few days. Shenyi murmured inwardly. Jiraiya's eyes were filled with his purpose. If nothing else happened, this lucky classmate would be me, but Shenyi really didn't want to cooperate with Jiraiya. However, countless classmates around were looking forward to it, so Shenyi could only resign himself to fate. Minato cast an envious look at Shenyi, and thought, it would be great if I would cooperate with Master Jiraiya, but Shenyi is not bad either. Not disappointing Shenyi, Jiraiya also walked to his side in a few steps. I see that this classmate's bones are amazing, and he is a good material for cultivation. Shenyi smiled awkwardly, walked up to the podium behind Jiraiya, and waved to other people in the classroom. The two of them exchanged eyes briefly, and Shenyi knew that what happened next would not be very smooth. Brother Jiraiya, I advise you to be kind. If Sister Tsunade finds out that you are bullying me, you should know what will happen. Don't worry, today is definitely a very big gain for you. I hope so. Jiraiya nodded his head twice, waved his hand and took out a few unknown little things from his pocket and threw them around the classroom. Enchantment, start. With the movement of Jiraiya's hand, every little thing emits a purple light. When all the rays of light were connected together, the classroom was already shrouded in a barrier. Looking at the classroom from the outside at this time, there was nothing to be seen except a piece of purple mist. At the same time, a light blue barrier also appeared around Jiraiya and Shenya, and within the barrier were Jiraiya and Shenya. Master Jiraiya, why did you suddenly set up so many barriers here? Yu Xing was a little worried about Shenyi's safety, and mustered up the courage to stand up and ask Jiraiya what was going on. Jiraiya raised a finger and waved it in front of him, signaling that everyone should not have any psychological burden. Today is a special lesson for you, so ninjas outside the barrier will not see what happened here, and it can be regarded as a harvest for protecting you. Then the enchantment between us is unnecessary. Do you want to be rough on me to prevent accidental harm to other people? Congratulations, Shenyi, you are absolutely right. Shenyi twitched the corners of his mouth twice. He was able to speak out so frankly about hurting himself. He was really a shameless guy. The real book, Kissing Heaven, came from Jiraiya's hands, and Shenyi finally understood why. Even though the two of them didn't control their voices, because of Jiraiya's control, the guys outside couldn't hear the conversation between the two of them at all. The only thing that can be seen is the movement of the lips. Ahem, as a ninja, the most important thing is the control of chakra. Next, you should take good care of it. Jiraiya's voice appeared in all directions in the classroom, as if he was in everyone's ears. Shenyi folded his arms around his chest and looked at Jiraiya quietly, wanting to see what tricks he could come up with. Whether it is true preaching and accepting karma or preparing to almost take revenge on himself, Shenyi has already figured out how to teach Jiraiya a lesson after the end. His natural face is not a vegetarian. A little acting like a baby in front of Tsunade can successfully subvert Jiraiya's image. Everyone focused their attention on Jiraiya, anticipating his next move. Spiral pills. Suddenly, a whirling blue chakra appeared in Jiraiya's hand. Shenyi's eyes widened and he couldn't believe what happened before him, and Jiraiya even used such a powerful ninjutsu to deal with him. Anyway, he was still a child at this time, and he was a little too much. Dig the grass, brother Jiraiya, are you a bit overdone? Rubbing this ball on my body will kill half of my life. Hey, I'll take care of myself. Sensing the malicious smile on Jiraiya's face, Shenye swallowed his saliva, and quickly put on a fighting stance. The chakra perception filled the entire enchantment, but Shenye found that there was no chakra fluctuation on the blue ball, it was just a blue ball with no appearance. Come on bro, I'll cooperate with you. Shenye opened his arms and slowly closed his eyes, waiting for the spiral pill in Jiraiya's hand to fall on him. Jiraiya pushed the spiral pill forward with an expression on his face, and pushed it directly on Shenye's chest. Yu Xing yelled in shock and immediately closed his eyes. Everyone broke into a cold sweat for Shenye, worried that something might really go wrong. But there was no sound, and the helix wand gradually disappeared from Shenye's chest. Don't panic, everyone, I won't hurt you, the behavior just now is just to tell you the importance of controlling chakra. That's right, Master Jiraiya's personal teaching made me feel a lot. No matter any ninjutsu requires a more subtle control of chakra. Ji Lai also quietly gave Shenye a thumbs up. He had been worried that Shenye would not cooperate well with him. He has even imagined all the bad situations and is fully prepared. Jiraiya crossed his hands on his chest, and whispered in his mouth, "Take it." The barriers on the edge of the classroom and the barriers around the two people gradually disappeared, then turned their heads and nodded towards Shenye. Thank you very much for the cooperation of this classmate. The few days of teaching are over. I look forward to the day you graduate from Ninja Academy. What, is this the end? Yeah, I haven't seen what happened yet. The only one who feels the most clearly at the moment is Shenye. It seems that we need to ask him carefully. I think it's better to forget it. It seems that Master Jiraiya's purpose has always been Shenye, and we are just a foil. All the chattering voices around fell into Shenye's mind, and Shenye shook his head helplessly. This guy Jiraiya would really make trouble for himself, his image just now collapsed in an instant. This time, not only male ninjas are full of hostility towards Shenye, but even some female ninjas also look down on Shenye very much. Only a few close people around Shenye know that what Jiraiya taught today is far inferior to what Shenye taught personally. Amidst the twittering and bickering, the day passed quickly. Shenye, should we go eat something together after school? No, I still have some things to do. Before the bell rang, Shenye jumped over the window and landed steadily on the ground. He raised his head and waved his hands at the water gate, then swaggered away. Once again, there was a frenzy in the classroom, and the word Shenye was pushed to the forefront in an instant. This guy must have a very important harvest. He didn't want to share it with us, so he ran away. Some guys started to move around and wanted to leave with Shenye, but they were frightened away by the staring eyes of the teacher standing nearby. After leaving the academy, Shenye chose a direction and ran quickly. According to his understanding of Jiraiya, he can definitely be found there at this time, and ask him what is going on with the spiral pill. In the original book, it took Namikaze Minato 3 years to create the ninjutsu of Uranus Maru, but it was learned by Jiraiya in just a few days. However, at this time, Namikaze Minato has not even become a genin, nor has he had too much contact with Jiraiya. Following the familiar route, Shenye appeared near the bathhouse where he crossed and landed. Walking around the bathhouse, I happened to see Jiraiya's own guy leaning on a wall with his ass pouted, peeking at him, smiling secretly from time to time. I knew you must be here. Shenye quietly stood behind Jiraiya. Since he was very observant, Jiraiya didn't feel anyone approaching behind him at all, and he was still observing intently. Monster power condenses. Shenye mobilized the chakra in his body to quickly gather on his right foot, and landed directly on Jiraiya's butt without a moment's pause. Ouch, who kicked me? Zilai also jumped up while clutching his ass, and the people in the bathhouse hurriedly put on their clothes when they heard the noise from outside. There are perverts peeping, sisters rush out. The stout bathhouse owner ran out with a broom in his hand, and ran away before Zilai had time to react. Shenye covered his mouth and smiled, let this guy play tricks on himself in the Ninja Academy, and took this opportunity to teach him a lesson. Hey, little guy, do you see who is peeking here? That guy ran over there, he doesn't look like a ninja from Konoha village. A group of people hurriedly chased in the direction that Shenye pointed, and Jiraiya also leaned on the big tree and let out a long breath, and finally escaped. Seeing the surroundings completely quiet down, Jiraiya jumped off the tree and landed beside Shenye. Brother Shenye thanked you just now, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't be able to get out of here now. HMPH, I just have something very important to ask you, let's find a place to sit quietly for a while. Zilai also nodded, looking at the serious expression on Shenya's face. He knew it was not a simple matter, and he had to answer seriously. Silence. No one broke the silent scene until it fell into a hidden corner. How did you learn the ninjutsu of Heliwen? Oh, you mean the little blue ball. It was available a long time ago. Jiraiya also shrugged, never thought that Shenye was so serious for such a thing. When he was on a mission, some ideas suddenly popped up in Jiraiya's mind, so he quickly implemented the spiral pill. Shenye frowned and thought, could it be because my appearance changed some rules and things in this world? I can't figure it out. Jiraiya also carefully recalled the process of creating ninjutsu, and found some clues about Shenye. It's a coincidence that on the day you appeared in the village, such a mysterious idea appeared in my mind. Could it be that you are my lucky star? Shenye gave Jiraiya a hard look, and completely lost interest in continuing the conversation with this guy. However, Jiraiya's words just proved Shenya's conjecture that it was indeed his appearance that changed some ninja worlds. Waving to Zilai, Shenye got up and prepared to leave. Ji-Lai also scratched his head inexplicably. Until now he hadn't figured out why Shenye asked this all of a sudden. Did he want to learn? After leaving Jiraiya, Shenye walked slowly towards his home. Shenye, what are you thinking about? You look absent-minded. At this time, the Ninja Academy just finished school, and the two girls Yuexing and Meisheng went home together, but they met Shenye on the way. Shenye regained his composure and raised his head to find that there was a street lamp only a few centimeters away from him. If there was no sound of the moon and stars, he would have bumped into it. Is school over yet? Yeah, you were about to bump into a street light just now, but fortunately I woke you up in time. Are you thinking about Mr. Jiraiya? Shenye smiled and shook his head. In fact, all the things about Namikaze Minato had been flashing through his mind just now. By the way, how are those guys? I've been clamoring to find you, and get the teaching from Master Jiraiya today through your mouth. Shenye let out a long sigh, and patted his forehead. At that time, I kept thinking about the spiral pill, and even forgot that Zilai had brought me so much trouble, otherwise I would never have helped him escape from the women's bathhouse. Now that he met two girls, Shenye showed his gentlemanly demeanor and sent them back to his home respectively. The sky had gradually darkened, and Shenye suddenly felt uneasy, so he hurriedly ran to the house. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.